Exit, and you see me around Twitter with the guy with the non-EU flag. So yeah, like I said in my profile, I'm a computer science student, so very busy life. So yeah, just call these guys. Hello.
Hello.
Alright. So we're live now. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, just tell everyone who you are. So maybe George, you go first. George?
What exactly do?
So just give us a brief intro. If people like introduce yourself, just say whatever.
So I'm 17, study politics, Labour leaver. Don't know what else.
I'm as George frequently says, I'm the hardest Brexiteer of us three. So keep that in mind. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, what about you, Calvin? Just tell a brief intro.
Well, I'm Calvin. I'm a Labour Party member.
Yeah.
I am a trustee for the University of Cumbria. And I'm also a Labour leaver.
Yeah.
And that's about it, really. I'm not that interesting, to be fair.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, I'll just add Swiss.
I'm trying to get my shoes off, and it isn't working with one hand.
Okay. I'm gonna add Swiss.
Jesus Christ! Ow.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, what's wrong with your shoes then? I just gotta call add people to the.
Trying to take them off with one hand.
So yeah,
never
let me know
works.
when you want to add Swiss. So add Swiss now.
Go for it.
Okay. Add people to the call. Swiss. There we are. Let's see if he calls. Replies. Okay. Oh. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, good. You're here. So, yeah. We're all here. So, yeah, Calvin's just taking his shoes off, so...
I've taken them off.
Quick as well.
Alright.
My shoes are already off, so I'm ready, man.
Yeah, same here. I took them off like an hour ago when I got back to my room, so yeah. Okay, so, yeah, Swiss, just introduce yourself if people don't know, just, brief intro.
Sure, okay. Well, I'm Captain Switzerland. I have a YouTube channel of the same name. I'm a centre-left Brexiteer, and I make political content about politics in the UK. That probably just about sums it up.
Yeah. And he's reached 1K subscribers, guys, as well. So.
Oh, congrats!
Thanks very much.
I think we're sitting comfortably on 6 at the moment, are we?
Oh no, we're 18. I just checked before I initiated the call. So
Right,
18.
I'm back.
I think that's all down to Swiss, to be fair, because he's talked about us I think twice so far. So yeah. Thanks, Swiss. Anyway.
No worries.
Okay.
Are we live now, by the way?
Yes, I initiated the call a couple minutes ago, and we're live. So.
I'll smash in.
Yeah. The agenda for today then, we talk about the so-called deal that the government has got. We're going to talk about the whole, Tony Blair, a lot of his stuff, and also I think it was George you mentioned about Paul Embury and the whole Metropolitan Police thing as well. So, yeah, where should we get started then? Should we start with, maybe we can start with Tony Blair. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Can I add as well, there's the Boris story from today we should probably do.
What's that, sorry?
That he compared Russia to Hitler.
Oh, Tony Blair?
No, Boris.
No, Boris.
Boris. Oh, sorry, yeah. Oh, of course.
Of course. Boris Johnson.
Bojo the clown. Oh, yeah.
Did that really need to be a question?
Yeah. Here we are. Boris Johnson compares Russian World Cup to Hitler's 936 Olympics. Okay.
That's probably not 1936 Olympics.
1936. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, of course, because that was when the wasn't it when the African American guy won a medal and everyone and the Nazis got angry? Wasn't it that one?
I think so. Yeah, there was because there's a story that goes around. The African American dude won a medal and Hitler had snubbed him or something like that.
Yeah.
Although I had heard that Hitler's policy back then. Here's me sticking up for Hitler in a stream. I really ought not to be doing this, but I think the policy of Nazi Germany at the time was not to congratulate athletes from any other countries.
Yeah.
No.
Because it was the whole, we'll try and make ours the best sort of thing. You know, we have to be the best at, basically. So, number of fans, okay. Anglo-Russians. Oh God! I mean, it's Theresa May, isn't it? Like, and them lot just screwing. Well, I mentioned this to George and Calvin. It's like Iraq 2.0. So, yeah.
Definitely. Did anybody watch Prime Minister's Questions this afternoon?
No.
So someone asked Theresa May, can you give any advice to football fans that are going over to Russia for the World Cup? And per usual, Theresa May couldn't give any advice at all and just sort of jumped around the question per usual, but tried to make it look like she answered the question, which is...
But, I mean, she's good at that. She's pre-programmed to do that.
She's really good at that. I noticed watching today. I was playing a little game with myself. Seeing as it was at midday, I thought I couldn't drink, obviously. So I was playing a little game with myself. How many shots would I have taken for the amount of times that Theresa May either ignored a question or just, jumped around it?
Yeah.
And I think the total was round about 19 in an hour.
Oh my God.
So I think
if you
pretty good feat.
Wow. I mean, if someone was taking shots, then it'd be absolutely hammered at the end of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
So I think my next drinking game is definitely going to be put on Prime Minister's Questions for an hour and do shots.
Yeah.
You'd be more sober if you took a shot every time she answered a question, not when she dodged one.
Yeah, but that'd be zero, to be fair.
To be fair, though, I don't want to be sober whilst listening to Theresa May talk.
Yeah, I mean, she just... Yeah, I don't know. What's it with Theresa May? I just have a really bad feeling every time she talks. Like, that sort of... I can't describe it.
It's because she's a Tory. I get that feeling every time a Tory talks.
It's like with Tony Blair. I know he says he's Labour, but he's a Tory. It's like that sort of thing.
Have you guys ever played PMQ's Bingo? It's pretty similar to the drinking game.
I've seen. I think you posted about this once. Actually, I've seen it. Yeah.
No, I haven't. What is this game?
Swiss. I was talking to Swiss.
Guess in Wales.
Oh, it's kind of, it works for variations on like PMQ's, Question Time, any of those shows really, where you just you make a few predictions beforehand what they're going to end up saying, and you see if you're able to cross off a line.
Labour running the NHS in Wales, that'll be the big one.
It's was it Labour ran out of money, didn't they? That's the other one, isn't it?
Oh, something 8 years down the line and we're still trying to blame Labour.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got last Labour government, Labour crushed the economy. Run on the pound. You can't forget Run on the pound.
Pound.
Even though they have one.
Yeah, I mean, what else? It's the usual strong and stable leadership in the national interest. That's the other one.
Oh God, yeah, that's one.
Oh God, it was. I can't remember. Have you guys seen this? It was someone made a parody of Theresa May, the malfunctioning Maybot or something. Have you seen it? The video, Jeremy Paxman.
No.
Oh, I'll show you. I'll show you. You'll love this. Have you guys all got your sound up so you can hear it? Let's just
Yep.
see.
Yeah.
Let's just see. Are we live? I'll just check. Yep, we're live. So I'll just share my screen. Share screen and sounds. Yeah. So.
Ooh.
Theresa May robot should be here. Don't know where it is.
There's so many results for that, isn't there?
Yeah, I'll probably go to Maybot instead. I think that would be better. But I mean, she is a robot. Oh, there we are. That's the perfect one.
Drag and drop.
Nice.
It's perfect.
At least that's not the VIX advert, the make your own website one.
Oh God.
When did you realize
realise that you got the...
You're talking about Brexit? I want to get a good deal. I want to get best deal from the European Union. What I don't want is this bad deal. No deal is better than a bad deal. A good deal, that would be a bad deal for us as well. Strong and stable.
That was basically it. So yeah.
That was the interview that absolutely ruined her chances of winning the general election, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Was that the one where the audience actually laughed at her a few times?
Oh yeah, and it wasn't it about the wasn't it there's no magic money tree when you just talk about the NHS, and she was like, judge us by our record. That was the one, wasn't it?
The magic money tree thing.
Yeah, and she said judge us by our record. I think people laughed at that one, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, judge us by our record. That's another. That should be another one that needs to be on Prime Minister's question bingo.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, it's last 8 years hasn't been any improvement at all in, general. So she can't really say anything.
The problem is the narrative from the Tories is we're increasing spending, and you can increase all the spending you want, but if it isn't in line with inflation, and if it isn't means tested, then it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work because you can keep on putting all this money into the NHS, but there is a much bigger amount of people accessing the NHS, and there's a much bigger amount of people working for the NHS that put in an extra, something like 1.5 million in a year isn't going to even touch on the amount of patients that are accessing it.
Yeah. But I mean...
Yes, well, in 97 to 2010 as well, spending trebled on the NHS.
Yeah.
And then it's just almost flatlined. It's gone up a little bit, but...
Yeah, but I mean, that's the excuse they use. They say, oh, we're putting more money, like, not nearly enough that it needs. It's just like on a chart they can point to it, oh, here's where we put the money in, isn't it?
Not only that, though, they call it record levels of funding, which is...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's another one for bingo, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which is technically correct, but you're not looking at it through the correct context when they say records of funding, because it's also record levels of fucking bullshit every winter as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do the same with unemployment as well. They say record numbers of people in work. There's so many more millions of people now.
Yeah, I was looking at the statistics today, and they said it 4.3% unemployment, and its inflation has gone down to 2.7%. So I was looking at that today. But the problem with that argument is it's not about the quantity of jobs you have; it's the quality of jobs, isn't it? So a lot of people, especially the working class, I think most of them are still in poverty, aren't they? Even though they've got a job. So.
Yeah, poverty is rising, and when they say that, pardon me, when they say that there's record levels of people unemployed, you've got to remember that there's people that don't have a pension anymore because the state took their pension away, that are now also having to go back into work. So you've got people that are in their 70s, 80s, 60s that are going back into work because they don't have a pension anymore.
Yeah. And also they count part-time precarious work and 0 hours contracts in that, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's just what I think what the Tories like to do is they just like to add every bit of thing, even though it might not benefit the people. They just say this is all that we've done. It's not, it's
a record level.
Yeah, Tories is about quantity over quality. They don't talk about the quality. They just talk about the quantity, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, and the actual rate of unemployment as well under Attlee was, I think, 2%, 1.9.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. But I mean, it was like the perfect time to deal with that because they needed to rebuild the whole of the UK after the war, so it's like the perfect time. Yeah.
And not only that, but women were for the first time taking roles in things like factories and things like that.
Yeah, because that's what they did during the war, because all the men went to fight, so they needed to keep the country going, and that's what they did. So
exactly.
Yeah.
There's a comment I've just spotted on the side of your YouTube feed from Cameron Hickman, who says there are more people in poverty. There are more people in poverty in work than out of work currently.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you've got nurses who are holding up the NHS and are absolutely working their arses off, and doing 24-hour shifts for 19 grand a year that are having to access food banks. That to me says, you know, we have a government that's failing and that's weak, you know, and we need people. When you've got nurses who are working 24-hour shifts that are the absolute backbone of the NHS, that are the absolute, you know, they're gods. They work their asses off.
Yeah.
And they are on 19 grand a year starting salary.
Yeah.
And having to then, after the 24-hour shift, go to a food bank, get a slot at a food bank, stay up for however long they have to then go to a food bank before they can even think about having a meal. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
It's just awful. But the thing with the Tories is they're gonna, you know, they're using the nurses and doctors as a statistic. So they're saying there's more people coming in, but I mean they're being treated like slaves, aren't they? You know.
Exactly.
This is probably a good time to ask you guys, actually, what are your opinions on the pay rises that have been penciled in the NHS?
It's 2%, isn't it? 2%.
I believe so. I believe someone had commented on one of my streams earlier saying it was going to be
pay cut effectively.
It's a pay cut in real terms if we look at sort of where the pay has been at for the last several years. But I often say this when I'm making videos on my channel. I always welcome the fact that people are going to be paid more money, or if there's going to be more funding put into the health service.
But it doesn't increase in relative terms, does it? So they're just saying, oh, we're going to give them a bit more money, but it won't actually benefit them.
Not only that, but they're also being told that to get this increase, they're having to work at least another 7 hours. So essentially they're being told you need to work at least another day. I mean, you know, me and anyone else that isn't working within the NHS, we would never, ever, ever expect to work a 24-hour shift. Yeah. We would never be expected to work a 24-hour shift. Yeah. So why is it nurses who are looking after people, who are saving people's lives, are expected to work a 24-hour shift? You know?
I don't know, but... Then again, I think the whole point of the Tories is we'll just keep the NHS propped up as best we can, which obviously it's going on the burden of the doctors and the nurses, and then they're gonna... It's basically public confidence in the NHS. They're trying to slowly but surely chip away at it, aren't they? So they can privatise the whole thing.
That's the idea, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's what they did with the rail.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I agree with you as things stand. They're putting basically the bare minimum into it they can get away with.
Yeah, it's like you know, someone on a life support machine. They're putting the basic amount of like chemicals and medicine in to keep them going. That's it, really, isn't it?
So the NHS is just a Frankenstein hooked up to the table at the moment. It's being kept alive with jolts, basically.
Yeah, basically. I mean,
but that's the problem. Is that's a great analogy, guys. But that is basically what's happening with the NHS, because the Tories know that as soon as there's that little bit of weakness in any hospital, that hospital's going to get closed down or sold to Richard Branson.
Oh, exactly. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Hate that guy. Yeah.
Have you seen Frankie Boyle talking about Richard Branson?
No.
Yeah, I have.
He said, if I had as much money as Richard Branson had, then I'd spend it all to tie his little island to this rope and drag it all the way towards Syria.
Oh, wow.
That's a very Frankie Boyle-esque joke.
Yeah, wow. I mean, he does go over the top. I remember, it wasn't his election special. Yeah.
Oh, it's
yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, it was really good.
The problem is, though, when you've got comedians like Frankie Boyle that are even saying, actually, hang on, what the fuck is going on here? Yeah. That's when you know the government needs to start being like, oh, wait, hang on, let's start doing something about it. Let's start funding the NHS. Yeah. The thing is, it's not even the NHS that's being underfunded, it's social care in general. Yeah. And it's being given, like, this is the thing, you do not trust Jeremy Hunt with a fucking thing. It's ridiculous that they've given him the added title. I am a trainee social worker, I'm a student social worker, that I've now been told that my salary has gone from 33 grand a year, is now being dropped to starting salary around about 21 grand a year, which is still, considering what some people are on, is still pretty good. But I'm now being told that half of my time spent in office, I will need to spend on a computer, because I'm being told that I need to do at least 14-hour shifts, which half of that I can't be going out doing home visits. So how am I supposed to get in contact, get in touch, advocate for my service users when 7 hours of my shift I'm spending sat in an office.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Oh, and
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and speaking of that, didn't you mention to me that you're actually being privatized?
Well, we're being marketised. So we're being marketised with with America, which is a very similar situation to what's happening with the NHS and it being marketised in America. So yeah, the social work profession in England, it's only in England, so I can only speak on behalf of social work in England.
Yeah.
We're being marketised to companies in America, which is where this idea of 7 hours of your shift needs to be spent in an office, because we need to be hitting those figures. So that we can continue to be marketised all over the world. It's ridiculous. And it comes back to, and I hate to bring it up so early on in the show, but it comes back to the EU and the EU bureaucrats.
Oh, it's a good thing we've got a Eurosceptic with us so we can go all out. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah,
but
I mean...
that is what it comes down to. Workers' rights... they're pretty much nothing anymore. They're nothing. I don't have any rights as a worker, as a social work student. I don't have any rights anymore to do anything really. You know, and the social care budget being slashed by, I think, actually I have a newspaper here with me. I think it's 1.4 billion.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. How are we supposed to operate on that with a cut that's that big? I mean, I'll try and find the article and I'll update you guys, but it's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my dad's been in the process of being privatised as well, doing of all things, the bin collections. Surely you'd think that'd be such an essential service.
Oh yeah.
But no, the local council's marketising it for the people that already do the recycling.
Oh yeah, and speaking of that, council elections on May the 3rd, isn't it? As well.
Council elections on May the 3rd, so everyone get out, vote Labour.
Vote Labour.
Well, you know, everyone just get out. This is probably one of the most important local elections that we're going to have in such a long time. It's really going to set the precedent for the next general election.
So try and make a trip there.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember it was some Ramona. He was saying, vote Lib Dem in your council elections to stop Brexit, and some guy was like, there's nothing to do with Brexit, so you need to vote Labour, which is fair enough, isn't it? It's just their mentality, isn't it?
Well, I think so. I mean, you know, in a council election, you're voting to decide, you know, when the bins are getting collected and how much might be, you know, that kind of thing. I highly doubt a local council is going to be able to stop the negotiations with Brussels anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if, say, you're a big company, it's local elections are like voting for local management, so the people that manage you directly, and then voting in a general election is like voting for the people at the top, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is with the local elections is it is so important that people get out and vote for them, because not only are they voting for people to represent their local community, but they're also setting a precedent for the general election. So, for example, in where I am, obviously George, and as in, you know, I am out pretty much every single day with the Labour Party, knocking on doors, you know, and we found out today, so we put a motion to our local council, which is a Lib Dem, and we said, he's an independent actually, he was a Lib Dem, he's now an independent.
Okay.
And we said, you know, can we please open a food bank? We need a food bank. We've got students who are living off nothing, but not only that, we've got workers that are living off nothing. We took this proposal to a former Lib Dem who said, no, sorry, we're not opening a food bank. We even said as a party, we are happy to put the initial funds in for this. He said, no, we're not opening that. So when you're voting for the Lib Dems, yes, you may think that it's an anti-Brexit vote, but it's not. You're voting for the Tories, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny. I was looking at Vince Cable's Twitter earlier, and he was talking about the Royal Mail and doing some stuff with that, and I retweeted him. I was like, mate, you're the one that privatised it, so you can't talk about the Royal Mail, you know.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous, and I mean, like, what's the point of voting? Like, the local elections. It's like, who do you want to manage your, you know, your local services? It's nothing to do with Brexit. It's nothing to do with big politics. It's just management, really. And
exactly.
You know, yeah. So I mean, it's only Labour can actually sort this shit out, can't they? You know, getting stuff running again. You know, that sort of thing.
The Tories can sort this shit out. They just don't want to.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I mean, they're too busy talking about their figures and going to fancy dinners with Russians, aren't they?
Exactly.
If I can just make Just to make a point on the local elections quickly as well, because the turnout of local elections is so much lower than a general, it means that anyone who goes out and votes in a local election, your votes will actually go further than it would do if it was for MP. Because it's on the basis of wards as well, as opposed to the entire constituency, your vote might only be counted against the votes of maybe 800 or 900 other people. So, like, proportionally, it's worth a hell of a lot more than it would be in a general.
Oh shit! I actually need to register and vote for this. I'm too busy.
Yes, you do.
Oh yeah. But the thing is, I might.
There's none where I am.
I might need to go, register again because I'm living on campus at uni in Birmingham. So I'll probably have to register again.
In elections, if you're a student, you're allowed to have 2 different constituencies. You can only vote in one of them, though. Let me just make that clear. You can only vote in one of them, but you can be registered.
I'm going to stay in uni in the holidays anyway, and I'm going to be back there because my exams start on the 9th of May. So yeah. Anyway, because I have a local constituency which is Walsall, and then I have Birmingham here. So I don't know which part of Birmingham, but yeah. Anyway, I've got to register my second one, so yeah, I'm probably going to vote in my Birmingham constituency. So yeah,
make sure you do.
Make sure you vote in the one where you make sure that there actually is a local election where you are, because like in my area there isn't a local election. It's 2017, 2021, 2025.
Okay.
I don't think I've got any. I don't think I've got one coming up in my area either. For that matter.
Nearby me in Southampton, because they have 3 out of every 4 years. They elect 3 different councillors for each ward, and they elect 1 each year, and then have a year off. So there's some there. So if I might go and campaign there in the Easter holidays.
Do it. See, the whole of my city is up, so it's literally is the decider between whether we're going to have a Tory run or a Labour run. But at the moment,
marginal area, so aren't you?
Yeah, very marginal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
your
what was it last
constituency is
time
like
for you
200
guys?
votes.
What did you get last time?
What did Labour get?
What did you? Well, yeah. What did they get your last local elections?
In the local elections. So we won 20. So there's 50 something seats available, and we won 26 in the last one. Which wasn't enough for a majority. But we're expected to. We've been out on the doorstep. We've looked at the figures. We're expected to win another 6 councillors, which isn't a lot, but that will take us over. We'll get the majority there. But also, we're looking for candidates in another area, in another ward, which hopefully I'll get selected for. Touch wood. And we're expected to win that, but we need the candidates first. So we could be. We're looking at either a gain of 6 or a gain of 9.
In the one where I am, the bit that I'm actually in is Wiltshire Unitary Authority. It's like Tory 70 out of 80. But but in Southampton it's a Labour run council majority.
Wow.
Over in Stoke, where I live at the moment, there are 44 councillors, of which the Labour Party make up 20. And it looks like right now we're being ran by a combination of city independents and Conservatives. But our next election isn't until 2019, so I've got another year to go.
Oh yeah. And also, speaking of that, on that note, wasn't there like 2 councillors who defected to the Tories, didn't they?
Yeah, yesterday.
One of them that's got an abysmal attendance, and one of them that's suspended for racism, I think it is, or something like that.
But two fairly well-known councillors. But yeah, they've defected to the Tories, but they were Blairites anyway, so we don't need them.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Is it bad of me to say this, but if there were councillors for Labour that are inclined to defect to the Tories at all, then to be honest, I probably don't want them in the Labour Party in the first place.
Yeah. No, exactly. Me and George were talking about this a bit ago, but yeah, we're exactly the same.
Yeah. Oh wow. So it's but yeah, local elections. I hope people get out and vote. Really, it's important because
all 20 people that are watching get out and vote, or however many it is, probably less than that.
I've got my iPad next to me, so I'll just go and check how many people are watching.
I've got it on my second screen if you want to know.
I haven't got a second screen. I've just got I spent like £400 on a fancy gaming monitor, so I'm just on that. So,
we've got 6 people watching at the
6?
moment, and
Oh.
and 3 likes on the video as well.
Nice.
That's not even 2 a person on the stream.
Wow. But let's be honest, this is our first official stream, so we need to build it up, don't we?
Oh yeah, I mean, you guys are just starting off. It took me absolutely ages to get traction with my YouTube channel when I first started out.
Yeah. But I mean, literally, back then, it was just you talking to a camera. It wasn't, fancy, political videos or anything, was it? So, yeah.
Yeah, it was bare bones stuff, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I really liked your first video about, what was it, 52% racists and fools, wasn't it called? That one.
Oh God, yeah. I think I must have made that shortly after the actual referendum itself. And I was getting really, really annoyed at this idea that everyone who voted for Brexit was, either they were a racist or they were tricked. And those were the only 2 options out there. That was the overall narrative. Either you hate all of the immigrants or you've been tricked by the people who hate the immigrants. And
By Boris.
Yeah, and it just really annoyed me because there were loads of completely reasonable-minded leaders that I knew.
Oh, speaking of that, didn't you hear about the whole fishing situation going on as well? Because I heard 92...
How can you not?
92% of fishermen voted leave in that referendum, so yeah. I mean, it's ridiculously high for those lot, because obviously the EU, they steal what? They steal, like, most of our fish, don't they? And they actually pay fishermen to destroy their boats anyway, so, It's like, we're paying too much for our fish, and it's not as good quality as it could be, thanks to the EU, basically.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's ridiculous. So, yeah, what topic should we move... Oh, actually, Swiss, talking about Brexit, like, can you tell people why you voted leave? Because you haven't really brought it up in a video as such, at all. So, can you tell your reasoning?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've probably mentioned... Well, in videos on my channel before.
Yeah, but, I mean, you might have alluded to it, but you haven't explained it before.
Oh, sure. Well, it's probably worth saying that I started off as a Remainer.
Yeah.
These 2 were too. I'm ethnically pure, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I was a good old metropolitan elite, just sticking to my little bubble. I was a good old person falling in line. That's all.
Yeah, so I started off as a Remainer because for years and years I just kind of thought, oh yeah, the European Union sounds lovely. I like being a partner with all these other countries. I like the movement and the travel and all the rest of it. Yeah. But I didn't really know an awful lot about it. I just heard stuff in the news about.
Same here, because when I saw the referendum result, I was gutted. But then again, I was watching the BBC, who made it look like a disaster, didn't they? Let's be honest.
Oh God, yeah, absolute damage limitation exercise. So the reason I moved over to leave, and some of my primary reasons for leaving, is I did my research. I found out about the structure of what the EU is, and not only do I find it to be fundamentally undemocratic in the way that it's ran, but I'm seriously concerned about the continuing consolidation of power.
Oh. Yeah, you made a video about this, United States of Europe. That's my main reason for leaving, actually. That's my main reason for supporting leave. It's nothing to do with immigrate. Well, it's to do with cheap labour. That's people always ask me, why are you so racist when you say you want to end free movement? It's about cheap labour. And second of all, it's all about political power. They all want a United States of Europe. This was always planned. I think it was Jean Monnet who said in 1952, the member states will be dragged into a United States of Europe without them knowing. It was something like that. But yeah, anyway, that's my main reason for voting leave. It's mostly political. So
yeah, and that's the trajectory that it's on. I often say this: if I'd been around back in the 70s when we had that first referendum to the on the precursor to the EU, I actually would have voted to be a part of that.
Oh yeah.
But the problem
then
is
again, no one heeded the warnings of people like Peter Shaw, Tony Benn, Barbara Castle. Nobody listened.
No, that's probably what the problem is, but that's it. So you start off and you're just going, okay, you've got a tariff-free trading bloc. That sounds fantastic. And then suddenly you go, oh, hang on a minute. They're getting a parliament and a currency and a flag and an anthem. This sounds a lot like a nation state you're building here.
I mean, they've got, and the commission who have all the power. They can propose and repeal laws. Parliament can't do that, can they?
The European Commission.
Yeah,
Parliament can only yes or no a proposal. They're not actually allowed to amend or repeal a previously passed law.
Yeah, I mean, that it's what can I say about this? It's like, it's just the way that it is right now. I think it's got all the trappings of a nation state. It just needs to. I think it's just as easy as, like, you know, Juncker, like, flicking a switch, and they could be United States of Europe very soon, can't they? It's that easy.
I mean, I think what's quite fortunate, really, is that Eurosceptic movements are on the up now.
Yeah, I mean,
EU.
people forget that it's that they think it's just right wing. Well, it's left wing. Look at Greece and look at Italy and places like that. It's not just right wing; it's left wing as well.
Oh, indeed, yeah. I mean, and I don't pretend to know exactly what the demographic of the Leave vote was in this country, but there was still, you know, perhaps not a majority, but still a substantial number of Labour supporters, even a few Lib Dems and Greens, for that matter.
Yeah, I think I saw a statistic where it was like 30% of Lib Dems voted Leave, which just sounds, you know, considering how Europhile and mad they are, you wouldn't think of it, would you? You know?
Do you want to hear one that I heard that will blow your mind?
Yeah.
It was something like 1 or 2% of UKIPers voted Remain.
What? I mean, it's in their name, isn't it? You know.
They must have just been there for the fun of it. I don't know what it is.
But then, did you see that?
They might have been voting against foreign aid or something like that.
Or did you see that interview that Owen Jones did with Nick Clegg, where he was like, a guy went up to Nick and said, Nick, I'm voting Leave, and Nick was like, why are you doing that? He's like, oh, I just want to, you know, cause a bit of trouble. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, perhaps some people did want to cause trouble. You know, as us in this stream are probably quite aware, there are completely good and legitimate reasons for wanting to leave the European Union. But there's other people I know who basically just went, yeah, I'm going to give 2 fingers up to the establishment. You're telling me to remain and I'm going to leave, goddammit.
Yeah, but I love the fact that the Remain campaign talk about re-leavers, you know, people who voted Leave but thinking, you know, switching to Remain. I don't think that's really the case. They're just blowing out a tiny proportion, aren't they?
Well, I think the thing is, it's incredibly easy to point to anecdotal examples and say, aha, this proves a larger trend.
Yeah. I mean, I think the vote is fairly consistent in the polls now. It's just, I think most people who voted to Leave want Leave, and I think most people who voted to Remain still want to Remain. So, you know, people can't say, oh, we're going to vote to Remain next time, whatever. But to be honest, I think most people are just sick of it and they just want to get on, whether Leave or Remain. They're just like, people voted, so we need to... They're Democrats, aren't they? You know, it's just a democratic thing to do. We just need to get on with it.
Like your mum said.
Oh, yeah, like she said, me and my uncle were arguing about Brexit. He's like the biggest Ramona ever, and I asked him, do you want a United States of Europe? He's like, yeah, that would be great. And I'm like, have you even thought about what that means? And he was like, no. So, yeah, but anyway, my mum walked past and she told me, it's like, I'll always disagree with you, but we're both Democrats, which is fair enough to her, isn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Could I ask you guys this? Because this is a question, something that gets commented on my videos a lot of the time, well, some of the time, is people will say, I want a United States of Europe. I think a United States of Europe would be a really good idea. So maybe it might be a good idea for us just to talk about why we think a United States of Europe is a bad idea.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, we haven't actually covered this you haven't talked about this in a video, and we haven't talked about it in our old stream. So, brilliant idea, because... joining the United States of Europe, let's see, because Commission already is so powerful that for United States of Europe to work, it will just need the Commission, the Council and the Parliament. Regional parliaments would not be allowed, so we'll have to scrap the House of Commons and scrap the House of Lords effectively. And also...
We can have the second one. I'd go along with the second one.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and also, we'd have to join the Euro and join Schengen, because how would it work if everyone was on different levels as well? And that would be a disaster for the economy and immigration as well.
I mean, and my biggest concern is ultimately it would leave us, like, we would have the level of control over the EU that, like, the state of Wyoming has over the US or Texas or California or whatever. Yeah. We would just be a single constituent part of a much bigger whole.
It's going to get worse, because I've heard the EU wants to add, like, Albania and Serbia and other countries by, like, 2030 as well.
Well, the EU...
Oh, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, well...
I mean,
the EU will be targeting...
Empire. I mean, it was Jose Manuel Barroso. He said he wants an empire, which is exactly right. I think he was the commissioner before Juncker. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
I think this is a time where we should be looking to devolve as much power as possible to local people, to local issues, not bringing it into... You imagine trying to represent on every single issue what's it, 500 million people?
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Ideally,
well,
you
it's
want
going
the
to go up
nation
now. It's
states
not.
to
It's
be-
like 550 million now, isn't it? Something ridiculous.
Well, not
and
only
ideally,
that.
you want smaller nation states
Yeah.
that can work together cooperatively without being
Yeah.
in a super state,
Yeah, it's
as opposed
like,
to
it's
joining
like with,
together.
It's like with my views on, Scottish independence and Irish unification. I agree with it, but the problem is these movements, they're pro-EU, which makes absolutely no sense. You know what I mean?
Leave one union to join another.
Join a worse union, exactly.
Yeah.
They're even less powerful.
It's like, leave the UK where you have, I don't know, you're one of the 4 countries that make it up, and you have the Barnet formula and all the rest
and they
of
have
it.
power in Westminster and their own parliament as well. Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, let's count it up quickly. So Scotland, how many MPs do they send to Westminster?
I think
It's 59.
59.
59.
Okay. So they have, and let me think, there's 650 MPs in Westminster. So I'm trying to do some maths here quickly.
40 in Wales and 18 in Northern Ireland.
But the point is, the representation that Scotland has in the UK as a whole is larger now than the representation they would have as a single
in the
member
EU,
state of the
because,
European
I've
Union.
heard a statistic. When we joined, we represented 20% of the EU. Now we're under 9%, so it's going to get worse.
That's it, yeah. And look, my issue is I have a natural mistrust of power. I have a natural mistrust of people in power.
Yeah.
And my biggest concern is how easy is it for me and the rest of the public to get the people who are running the show out of power if we want
and
to.
this is wasn't it Tony Benn's 5 questions?
Yeah, and the final one is, and how can we get rid of you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand when people say they want a United States of Europe. Have they really thought this through? Especially if they say they're Italian or Greek. I mean, that's the worst thing you could do for your country, especially with Greece or Italy, isn't it?
Exactly, and not to mention the state of the euro. But as well, we've talked about this before, and I'll bring it up again. But it's not always about how big the country is in terms of how many representatives it has going to a parliament. It's about what they do for the economy. So England, which is quite a small country in comparison to other countries within the EU, but we have one of the biggest amounts of MEPs that we send to the European Parliament because we put in so much money.
Yeah, the UK has 73 MEPs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's about a tenth of the EU Parliament. So
Exactly.
Because it's 751 at the moment.
So how many MEPs would an independent Scotland get? I'd imagine it'd be close to about 10 or 20, probably.
Currently,
even less than
they only get 7 in the UK Parliament. It's done by proportional regional representation as well.
Yeah, and
I think they get 7.
Yeah, and it was me and you, George, who were talking about this. It was it's like the worst system because you don't know who you're voting for as well.
Yeah, it's list PR, which I despise because
Yeah.
it's not like the system they use in Northern Ireland, STV, where you can vote for an individual candidate still in a PR system or mixed member or whatever. You just vote for the party. So let's say you think there's going to be 3 Labour people elected, let's say on a London list, if we took this up nationally, and let's say number 1 was Corbyn, 2 was Wes Streeting, and then 3 was John McDonnell, and you want to vote for Corbyn McDonnell, but you don't really want to vote for Wes Streeting. Yeah. So I don't really like this. That's why I'm a bit outspoken in supporting first past the post.
Yeah.
On the side, but
yeah, exactly. It's just and also, what do you guys think? We can probably start. I think the plan was to talk about a bit about this whole Tony Blair and it was my life, my say and stuff like that. What do you think about the young people who are being brainwashed by, this, like my life, my say, this stuff like that, these big organisations who are trying to sway their vote?
Talk about a snake oil salesman.
Yeah. It's Tony Blair Institute. I tweeted about this earlier. I can't spell Tony Blair. Well, I don't want to spell him anyway. Anyway, I mean, I was tweeting about this earlier, and my tweet went viral. It was.
See, he lies straight away.
Oh man, even that banner, making globalization work for the many, it makes me want to vomit.
Yeah, exactly. But what was my tweet? It's I'll show you. I'll show you actually. Profile. Where's my tweet? There.
The thing is, Tony Blair is one of the big bosses. He has money. He has a lot of money. So of course he wants to stay in the EU because he doesn't need workers' rights. He doesn't need any rights. He's a millionaire.
JP Morgan. This is my tweet. Tony Blair should be in prison for terrorism and war crimes. He should never, because he talked about this hashtag called Never Again, so I used it against him. He said, "Never again walk as a free man," and it's 45 retweets, 70 likes, which is amazing. I mean, really, considering.
Here, comrades.
Yeah.
I think you should bring up the banner from Tony Blair's original election in Sedgefield in '83 about the EEC.
Oh yes, I will.
Wasn't he against the idea of an EEC?
Well, he said he was.
But the thing is, it's like he was the opposite of Tony Benn. He became right wing when he came to power. As Tony Benn got more left wing as he got higher up in Labour, didn't he? That's the one. Negotiate withdrawal from the EEC, which has drained our natural resources and destroyed jobs. But now he thinks it's the best thing that's ever existed, isn't it? He's like,
yeah. I saw this thing that when he was leader, he said he went. I wasn't actually opposed to membership of the European community. I said within the closed doors of the Labour Party that I was opposed to the policy, and that just shows exactly what he's like, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. But he says one thing and does the other. I think it was George Galloway's documentary. He said that Blair was talking about like dealing with advertisements, and he went on his he had some dodgy dealings for like F1 and stuff as well.
Yeah, Bernie Ecclestone donated $1 million to the New Labour election fund, and then conveniently when they banned tobacco advertising on sport, Formula One got an exemption.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, also...
Interesting.
Yeah, and also, I mean, to show you how corrupt he is, he went to visit Rupert Murdoch, I think it was in '95, and his name was, like, on the front page of The Sun in '97 during the election as well, so that's how corrupt he is.
Oh,
yeah,
man, there's even better reasons for how corrupt Tony Blair is. But how long have we got,
he's a terrorist for a start. I mean, that's the main one, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But... He was endorsed by Ecclestone. He was endorsed by Murdoch. That to me tells me Branson. Oh God, Branson.
Oh,
that
God.
To me he started the privatisation of the NHS. He started the marketisation of universities.
Yeah.
So that tells me everything that you need to know about Tony Blair.
Who
really
started it, but Blair who basically like kicked it into high gear. A major side piece.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, he talks about it's exactly why he scrapped clause 4, didn't he? Exactly why.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's just I don't know. I don't understand Blair, but it's just he's a pretty straight sort of guy, but he's really dodgy, isn't he? He says one thing and does the other. But then again, that's Tory traits, isn't it? Let's be honest.
I mean, Blair's your archetypal modern politician, isn't he? You know, smooth, collected, well presented, but with malicious intentions behind his eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you guys seen? I think it was from a couple of days ago. Tony Blair and George Osborne getting together.
Oh yeah.
Saying, "Come on, guys, come back to the centre ground. We miss you."
Oh.
Yeah, me and Asim mentioned this on Monday, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tony Blair. Let's go back to his Institute page. So yeah, I mean it's ridiculous, but then again. He was a Tory when he got elected, and he's still a Tory, isn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
But I couldn't think of two more unpopular politicians: George Osborne and Tony Blair.
Yeah, I mean, well, George Osborne, he killed thousands of people here with austerity, and then Tony Blair killed thousands of people in Iraq, and he's still technically killing people because of ISIS as well, you know?
Can I just intervene there?
Yeah.
George Osborne wasn't the architect of austerity. He wasn't the person that brought the idea of austerity. It was David Laws, who was a Liberal Democrat politician.
Oh my God, that's even worse. Oh.
And he was the one that came up with the idea of imposing austerity, and George Osborne went along with it. But regardless of that, George Osborne's still a dick.
Yeah, I mean...
No, I've just seen something that's got to be mentioned. Yeah. Someone's reported, it says, tell us about the person you saw, and they say Nigel Farage, former UKIP leader. Yeah. And it said, describe exactly where we can find the dumped rubbish. It's reporting it for fly tipping. And it's type of rubbish, animal carcass.
Yeah. I saw that tweet. Yeah, I mean... I mean... People, I mentioned this several times to both of you about this, and people say, I support Tony Blair, but I hate Nigel Farage. Like, Nigel Farage is the worst politician, but, I mean, Nigel has said bad things, Tony has done bad things, so you can't really compare actions to words, can you? You know? And it's like, I think, George, you mentioned this, that Nigel apologises when he said something wrong, and it's like with Blair, he just said, oh, I was right, I'm never wrong, you know.
It was the right thing to do at the time.
Oh,
was it?
Yeah, I mean...
I mean, Tony, sorry to interrupt, but Tony Blair, like, even after the, was it the Chilcot inquiry? Yeah. He even said, oh, yeah, and I'd do it again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Sorry, I'd do it again if I got the
he
job.
destabilised Iraq, killed, like, 1.5 million people, and created ISIS. So, yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure he'd be proud of ISIS, you know, his little children. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I've said to people. We shouldn't throw him in jail. We should take him to Iraq or Syria to meet ISIS, you know.
Oh, don't give him the pleasure of doing that. Let's just chuck him in prison.
Yeah.
Put him on trial first, though. We ought to say that.
Take him to The Hague, and, you know, you should hand him all the planned speeches he had about Brexit and make him confess them there, you know. So, like, instead of, like, going to an Open Britain conference and saying all the crap there, you should say it in The Hague.
What happened to this brand new centrist party that he was making with George Osborne? Anyway, what happened to that?
Yeah, I'll have a look.
Was it the Democratic Party or something like that?
Yeah, it's the most ironic thing ever.
Yeah.
I guess no one was interested. Bless them. No one wanted.
It's almost like no one's a dirty centrist Europhile anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly why the centrist parties in. Oh, here we are. Perfect. Yeah, I'll bring this up. Oh, why is my thing going that? Oh, it's probably your uni Wi-Fi. Ah, there we are. There we are. Gap in centre politics. Oh my god. That just makes...
I mean, look at them. Look at them. They look like a double act.
Yeah.
Okay, cokehead and war criminal.
Yeah. I mean, oh god. I mean, they are the same person, basically. It's like centre to centre right politicians. I mean, this is the stereotype of them, isn't it, really? It's just
pretty much.
Exactly.
You've got the left of the Conservative Party and the right of the Labour Party.
Oh,
and look how close together they are.
Speaking of that, I watched your video. What was it? Anna Subri and Shukra Amuna, and Anna Subri was like, "We need to be, you know, open-minded and consider other options, isn't it? That's your alternative, Andrew Marshall. That's the one."
Oh, that was the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. The joke about them wanting to have sex was perfect.
God. He said hard Brexiteers have dragged the Conservatives to the right, with Jeremy Corbyn and moved Labour left. But I mean, isn't that what they're supposed to be? Both parties, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point. I mean, you know, the so-called centre ground, the as it's described there, the moderate, pro-business, socially liberal, internationalist part of the public. They've had the run of the Conservatives and Labour for the better part of the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I mean,
now they're all moaning about being politically homeless.
Yeah, I mean, it was in Labour, wasn't it? Kinnock, John Smith, and then they moved it towards the centre, and then Blair moved it towards the right, didn't he? That's how it worked, wasn't it?
John Smith.
I'd say, as it turned out, Smith probably, because of how right Kinnock took it, Smith probably took it a little bit back left.
Okay.
Even though he was more right.
Yeah, but then he took it a bit back, but then Tony took it all the way to the right, didn't he? You know.
Yeah. Tony and Gordon Brown, yeah, and it's actually quite interesting because Brown isn't actually that much of a anti-Corbyn that you would think he is. He's actually quite pro-Corbyn in all of his interviews.
Did you see his video about after the election about Corbyn? I think it's November 2017. It was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's why you had the division between the so-called Blairites and the Brownites within the party for a number of years.
Yeah, but then apparently John Woodcock was a Brownite.
Yeah, wow. Rethinking the centre ground. I've seen loads of FBPE trolls on Facebook and Twitter, like saying this exact same thing. Rethinking the centre. We don't need Corbyn's, you know, far left communist platform. We need to rethink the centre and stick to that. But then that's the FBP stereotype, isn't it? You know.
Rethinking is such a Blair phrase as well.
Yeah.
Rethink.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
The thing is, people are sick of centre politics. Centre politics is the metropolitan elite. Centre politics are the people who are fucking the country up. People are sick of it, and they're turning to either the far right or the far left. And it's quite dangerous, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see all the protests in countries like Italy and Greece and those sorts of places, which it's either communist or fascist parties that start those, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, I mean, I think if the centre ground wants people to flood back to them, they're going to have to up their game, really.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Well, I mean,
they're going to have to up their
The thing is, the centre ground, they call themselves the centre ground. They're not. They're right wing. Because if you look at the actual policies
right-wing
and what
economic
centre ground
policies,
means,
exactly. Yeah.
centre ground is the middle of public opinion. And guess what? 75% want to nationalise the railway, 80% the water, over 50% the bank.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it's but that's the thing about, say, UK politics compared to, say, American politics. The centre here is way more left-wing than, say, America, isn't it?
Yeah, Hillary Clinton would be in the centre, around the middle of the Tory pie, if
Centre
not on the
right,
right.
yeah. I mean, but people in America call her left, and it just makes me sick because I don't want to associate myself with it. You know what I mean? It's just I mean, it's absolutely.
Hillary Clinton started off as a Republican. It was only Bill who sort of managed to convince her to come over to the Democrats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was a Goldwater girl, wasn't she?
That's right.
Yeah, but I mean, but then again, you're talking about the centre and like thinking of new policies. I mean, you can't, because all the ideas are either left or either thinking, you know, on the left wing or right wing, aren't they? So they need to go somewhere, don't they? You know. So, because the left and right, that's where the real so-called radical stuff is happening. If they want to be radical and listen to the people, they need to drift in either direction. I think you can't get it in the centre, can you?
Well, I think, you know, obviously the centre ground shifts depending what the political mood is. Like, you know, the centre ground was different, say, 40 or 50 years ago from what it is now. But I think the point where the centre ground today is, as it's listed there, you know, pro-business, socially liberal, internationalist, etc. That might all be fine, but it's the status quo. Status quo that is not presently providing for people.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that is why people look for other alternatives.
Yeah, it's no matter how extreme, they still want something different. Exactly. That's why you see, like, the AFD, they got 93 seats in the parliament there. You've got Lega Nord in Italy, did better than the centre-right party there. You know, it's that sort of thing. You know, people are either going to drift left or right, depending on what's on offer, isn't it?
That's it, yeah. And I think good for that matter. I think. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people say, why has Labour done so well? But they're doing exactly the same thing. They're running on a populist platform. I mean, this is the only really big populist left-wing party in Europe. I mean, you know, other people need to wake up in other countries and realise that.
Well, I mean, certainly we're the only ones with even a shadow of a chance of getting a majority anytime soon, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the platforms that people are running on. Like, Corbyn recognised that you know, he wants to, like, you know, get people fired up and run a populist platform. I mean, that's how people get votes nowadays, isn't it? It's running on a, you know, very passionate platform. It's not like dry centrism like Blair or Osborne, is it?
Not only that, but Corbyn's a very good speaker, as is Thornbury, as is Long Bailey. You know, they're very good speakers, and that is a trait of a powerful leader and a good leader.
Yeah.
So, the chances are that in Western Europe, they've got the left who probably haven't got the leaders that we've got.
Yeah. But I mean, they need someone anti-establishment. It's like with Corbyn, he was a backbencher. He was anti-establishment his whole life, so that's why people liked him, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Calvin mentioned the good speakers. I think no one talks about how good a speaker is, but John McDonnell's an exceptional speaker.
Oh wow, I've seen some of his stuff. It's brilliant in Parliament. Yeah, I love it. I love some of his speeches and all that. And I remember
John McDonnell's great if you're left wing. He's not so great if you're centrist or right wing.
He's not one to reach out, but he's one to rally the troops.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what we need right now. We need people to rally the troops, and I think it's only really the right-wing parties in Europe. Well, there's a few left-wing, but mostly right-wing. I think they're the ones that have only really got the message of how it all works, isn't it?
Exactly, but I think I can't remember what country it is, but they have a Green Party president. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it might be Switzerland, I want to say.
Is it Austria?
Okay.
It may be Austria.
I believe it's like a Green Party president, but with like a far-right Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Was it that guy that? No, that's not the one. United States Green. It's all US stuff for some reason.
And look at Jill. And Jill Stein as well. She is a phenomenal speaker from the left. If you haven't listened to any of her speeches, then I highly recommend that you do, because she is an amazing speaker.
It was all the left-wing, you know, so-called alternative media in America.
Jimmy Dore.
Jimmy Dore. What was the rational? The other few others, was it? Democracy Now! Was the other one, wasn't it? But they were like, they were all going behind Bernie. But then once Bernie got stabbed in the back, a lot of them were like, vote Jill Stein instead, and because she's the only one that actually has those sorts of policies, isn't it? So
that's exactly why I lost love for the Young Turks, because the moment Bernie got stabbed in the back, they started shilling for Hillary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Only like Jimmy Dore and Carl Kalinske actually stood out.
Oh, here we are. Yeah, it is Austria. It's the Greens. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Green politics. Yeah. So they're like our.
I don't think their Greens are quite as left as ours. They're a bit like the German one.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the whole left-wing, so-called and pro-EU stance with Green parties. I don't understand it. I mean, I think Swiss mentioned this in his was it questions to the political leaders. He said, if the Greens are so environmentally friendly and they're anti-corporatist, how can you be pro-EU? Wasn't it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, the Green position on Brexit is something I really can't get my head around, because they're usually so anti-establishment and anti-corporation, and yet they love Brussels. I don't understand it.
But I mean, they'll probably use the wishy-washy line to get in the centrists. Oh, we're outward-looking, we're internationalist. I mean, that's the line that the centrists use, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Look at the outrage about Jenny Jones, who was their London mayoral candidate a few years ago, who came out for Leave, and the rest of the party up in arms.
Yeah.
Well, Jenny Jones was almost bullied out of the party, and she's their only representative in the House of Lords, and very close to being bullied out of the party, which I think is absolutely, because she's a great speaker as well.
Yeah. She was Ken Livingstone's deputy mayor as well, wasn't she? When he was independent for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what's the word? I could take this back to Corbyn actually, because I mean, that's why he probably came up for so-called Remain and Reform, didn't he? He didn't have a choice, because he had both hands tied behind his back, and if he gave a free vote, or if he was in a more powerful position, I pretty much guarantee that him and McDonnell would have come up for Leave, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they are Eurosceptics in their heart of hearts. It was a great irony with the referendum, though, because I think that Corbyn toed the line with Remain, because if he didn't, his party would have mutinied against him, and then they mutinied against him anyway.
Yeah, 172 no confidence votes, and then he got an increased majority, which I found really ironic, really. It was like, he got nearly, was it around 62%, and then it was Owen Smith who got 38%, wasn't it? I think it was about that.
It would have been even more increased if they hadn't barred all those new members from voting as well.
Oh yeah, wasn't it that guy that left, wasn't it? I forgot his name.
Ian McNichol.
Yeah,
Ian
exactly.
McNichol, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
saying they love the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, can I just say, I don't know if any of yous, Swiss, I don't know if you're a member of the Labour Party, but we have actually now been told that we're not allowed to use any of his what are they called, flyers or anything like that. If we use any of his flyers, he's threatening to sue.
Whose flyers?
Ian McNichol, when he produced all the flyers for the Labour Party, up until whenever he left, he resigned, he was producing flyers for the local elections, national elections, yada yada yada. And now we've been told we're not allowed to distribute them anymore, because if we do, they've got his name on them, we'll get sued.
Yeah, because it's just like copyright, isn't it? Oh, it's my stuff, you get sued. Yeah, exactly.
For the record, if anyone's interested, I'm an affiliated supporter for the Labour Party. I was one of those. I think it was the £3 sign-ups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even. I'm not. I'm a strong supporter of Labour, but I'm not a member actually. So yeah.
Yeah, me and Kelvin are members.
Yeah, so I two full members, one half member, and a non-member. Is that about right?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, supporter but not member. Yeah, I mean it's just. But I mean I'm a bit. It's like with Corbyn. I don't understand with this whole customs union thing, because he said before, after the referendum, and McDonnell said that as well, we can't be part of a single market and customs union, and now they're pro-customs union, which makes no sense as well.
I think the only reason he did, I think there are two reasons why he did that. The first one was probably bending to pressure from within the MPs of the Labour Party, because most of them are Remainers anyway. And secondly, because I think it was at the time politically expedient to actually come out with a position different from that of the Conservatives.
Yeah, but let's be honest. The hard Brexit is the only Brexit, so you can't, unless you do that, you can't really come out. Because single market, if he did that, then most of his policies would be out the window.
Oh, exactly, yeah. I completely agree with you there. The so-called hard Brexit, as it's been dubbed, is Brexit.
Yeah.
The soft Brexit is no Brexit.
The choice of Brexit or Brexit in name only.
Brexit, yeah, Brino, exactly. Yeah, and I mean that's what Theresa May's been doing. I mean, even the right wing Brexiteers are going all mad about her because. We can go on to this actually. I can talk about the so-called deal that they got. Let's get rid of those guys. Brexit. Hopefully it loads.
But I think the thing is with Corbyn and this Leave Remain thing, I think it was very much he was trying to side with the working class as best that he could, and not be as anti-establishment as he's been in the past because he's a party leader.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, there's backlash as well. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's so much backlash.
Because you had a lot of working class people who voted to remain, but you also had a lot of working class people that voted to leave. So I think he's trying to just try and get them all on his side, really.
Yeah.
I was just going to say quickly, you've got the issue as well that I think a majority of Labour members are Remainers, but a majority of Labour constituencies voted Leave.
Yeah, 70%. Yeah, 70%.
And like the biggest swing in the country against Labour as well was in Dennis Skinner's seat in Bolsover.
Wow.
And so that showed it, and
because
that's
he was
reasonably
always working class. Yeah, he was. I think he was a miner before he became a politician, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
That's right. Yeah.
But his vote went up, but he had a 25% UKIP, 25% Tory, and most of the UKIP vote went back to the Tories.
Yeah.
And so he's now not as comfortable as he was.
Yeah, I mean it's. I've heard during the 2017 election where people were shocked at how many UKIPers went to Labour, but I think they had their manifesto is actually more hard Brexit than their position is now. Let's be honest. I think.
Yeah.
So
the original manifesto, I agreed with the position.
Exactly.
Completely,
same here.
Not now. They've sold out on the customs union.
Yeah, because
vowed to Keir Starmer and Chris Leslie.
Yeah. But I mean, the whole thing with the customs union is one of the big reasons for people on the Labour Leave side was that we can trade with the poorer countries and trade their way out of poverty. But we're still going to have to put the common external tariff onto countries in Africa. So that what's the point of staying then if they want to do that?
I've got a question for you guys as far as Labour's Brexit position goes, because something that the viewers on my channel always love asking me is where would I draw the line between Labour going Remain and whether I'd still vote for them or not and that kind of thing. And I've said before, I don't think I could in any good conscience ever vote Conservative, even if they were the only pro-Brexit party out there.
Yeah, same
and I'm
here.
just wondering, as far as you guys are concerned, if Labour went soft Brexit, if Labour went full Lib Dem.
For me, I mean, because I'm probably with Swiss on this. I think I'm probably the hardest Brexiteer out of you three, our little group. But I'd say that if it came down to it, I would spoil my ballot paper personally. That's what I would do.
If Labour came out for second referendum stuff like that, if I was in somewhere that's a marginal seat, I'd hold my nose and still vote for them because the actual plan for society would still be the most important one.
Yeah, but if
the constituency I'm in, it makes no difference. It's a Tory majority of nearly 20,000.
Yeah, but I mean,
so
my neighbour constituency, well, my town where my home is, Walsall, it was 67.9% Leave, and I think it was Walsall South that fell to the Tories. Was it North? I can't remember. But North. It was North. Yeah. But one of them fell to the Tories, and my constituency didn't. So that was, because it's heavy Leave.
To me, there's bigger issues going on, especially surrounding the NHS stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm probably the most soft Brexiteer out of the four of us.
Yeah.
And for me, there's bigger issues such as the NHS, social care, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There is no chance in hell that I would find myself voting for the Tories or the Lib Dems, so I would have to vote Labour. Yeah. But to me, like I said, there's other issues that are just as important as Brexit, which would mean that I would have to vote Labour.
I mean, if you're talking about nationalisation and some of their other big pledges, if they're gonna back single market customs union or back a second referendum, then they might as well throw those policies in the bin, to be honest.
Well, realistically, those policies couldn't be done whilst we're in the EU, whilst we're in a single market and a customs union.
Yeah.
But there are bigger issues, and
yeah.
It's a very difficult one because I voted for Labour on socialist principles. I'm a socialist, and I vote for them on a socialist principle. Within the EU, it's very difficult for us to be socialists.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more that a Labour government can do in terms of better funding and things like that than the Tories would ever want to do.
Exactly, but I'd much rather get out before the EU. It's like getting off a train. I'd much rather jump off the track and have a few scrapes and bruises rather than, stay on the train until it derails, if you know what I mean.
Realistically, whilst we've got Jeremy Corbyn as a leader and John McDonnell as our shadow chancellor, there's going to be no chance of a second EU or anything like that.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Corbyn's a Democrat. He's a socialist Democrat. There's no chance he's going to say, let's have a second referendum. The people have spoken, regardless of the majority.
I mean, he was there as soon as the Leave vote got announced. He says, let's trigger Article 50 and get on with it. Exactly. He was right there when that happened. So, yeah. Oh, speaking of Brexit, and let's talk about fishing, actually. What do you think about this whole Farage and the fishing thing? What do you think about it?
Well, he's an idiot, as usual, doing silly things, but he's right on the issue.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be
but,
betraying. There's a huge area of support in the southwest, places like that, where Labour traditionally haven't done very well, where if you came out for fishermen who aren't very well paid, but who live in areas, especially if they're in the southwest, for example, in Devon, Cornwall,
I've got
usually Tory voters. There's a big pool of potential voters there.
Yeah. I've got a reply from Jason on Twitter. I'll just read it out. Social Democrats across Europe are being decimated due to their slavish support for EU and ECB austerity. Syriza is the biggest example of how they will sacrifice their own people to uphold the fantasy of social Europe. Labour Party must not follow this line, and he's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, wasn't it that? Was it the whole bailout referendum thing where they got a 61% vote and the EU just screwed them over anyway?
Yeah.
I mean,
then they insulted Spiras. Varoufakis resigned, and now Syriza are in a bit of chaos, even though they're in government.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, if any of you Remainers are watching, I'm going to bring up a point about you love to talk about how democratic the EU is. I'll just bring up a point where the EU, they love overturning or rejecting referendums, don't they? It's like in, was it France and Denmark? They rejected the constitutional...
France, Netherlands...
Yeah. France, Netherlands,
and then
Denmark.
Lisbon in Ireland.
Yeah, Lisbon, it wasn't... I think it was the Nice Treaty. It was renamed the Lisbon Treaty after Ireland voted again, so they could just push it through. I think that's how it worked. And then I remember after the vote, Nigel Farage and his lot, had this thing on it, a little jumper which said, respect the Irish vote. I think that's what happened, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think what happened was that it was the Constitution, and then Netherlands and France voted no, so they changed it to Lisbon. Yeah. Ireland voted no, so then they changed one little tiny bit of it and then made them vote.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit ironic because, everyone's favourite Ramona, Nick Clegg, didn't he want a referendum on the treaty, I think? Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted not just a Lisbon referendum, but he said in 2009 he wanted an in-out referendum, a proper referendum.
Yeah, I'll just
Nick Clegg wanted a referendum with everything. If you've read the book Coalition...
I'll bring this up. Here, this is it. It's time for a real referendum on Europe. This is when he was, very young. So. Yeah, wow. I can't believe he's got a knighthood now, to be honest. It's ridiculous. Yeah, but then again, it's the establishment holding their own, in their little place. But yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, getting back to the whole fishing thing. I mean, they did have a point with throwing the fish because a lot of our fish, for example, I think we're not allowed to catch haddock, so we have to throw it back anyway. So I think they sort of did have a point doing it, to be honest. So I think it's ridiculous, the whole EU fishing waters. But then again, I remember when we voted to leave, and all the fishermen in, like, was it Ireland, in France, and Spain, they were throwing a fit once we voted to leave, didn't they? They were like, "Oh, we can't fish in your waters." Well, you bloody can't. You know, it's our waters. It's not yours, is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they're not going to get their justice until what, 2021? You know, until we actually end this so-called transition period. I think it's ridiculous that they won't get their justice until. Oh, speaking of the transition period, let's have a look at what. Let's go through this. Transitional period will last from Brexit Day until 31st December 2020. Oh, I think I mentioned this before. It was the Remainers were going like, oh, the EU will, you know, make us extend the transition period until infinitely. But then I remember it was actually the EU that put a hard line on the transition period. It was Barnier who said it will end at the end of 2020, wasn't it? And they were all like, you know, why did the EU do that? We wanted to stay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit of time after the EU referendum where the EU was actually considering saying no to us, saying no. It was an advisory referendum. You just don't need to act on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like they've done on countless occasions to other countries, you know.
Yeah, and this with the fishing situation, it's actually very dangerous for the Conservative Party in terms of party political. It's actually great for the Labour Party,
yeah.
But in terms of getting justice for the fishermen and women who are now going to be looking at losing a salary. You know, they have no justice.
I mean, fishing
for the Labour Party, it's great. It's great because they're going to get a lot of fishermen and women that have voted Conservative in the past that are now going to be voting Labour.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's a bigger issue than party politicals.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
I mean, fishing is huge in places like Scotland, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Well, Yeah. Exactly. And as someone who lives on the border.
As well.
Yeah, and as someone that lives on the border of Scotland, when I go out on door knock, and specifically what I heard today was people have gone from voting Conservative now in the local elections. They're not going to even be voting Conservative in the local or the national elections because of this. They're going to be swapping to either Lib Dems or Labour.
Yeah, because then again, it's more Tory U-turns, isn't it? Because I remember very clearly that Michael Gove said, we'll take back control of our waters in 2019, and now he's saying, oh, we're going to have all this transition crap, you know.
Do you guys think this perhaps speaks to the strength of the EU's position in these negotiations, though?
Yes,
the fact that, you know, they set out their red lines and effectively we end up agreeing with all of them sooner or later.
It's Theresa May, isn't it? She's a globalist Remainer at heart, isn't she?
She's a bloody difficult woman, but she's not showing us that.
Yeah, she's a bloody... I remember she said, if I lose just 6 seats, it's Jeremy Corbyn that's going to negotiate with the EU. But she lost she lost 12, didn't she? Exactly.
Yeah, I was so disappointed. That was a broken promise right there.
Yeah. Oh my god. It's.
But
sorry. Yeah.
Can I say about this that I think the reason that we do so bad in negotiations is because our red lines are set by the ideologues like your Boris's, your Rees-Moggs. It means that Davis, who I don't agree sometimes with all the attacks on it, because he's a fair, sensible man. He's an incredibly skilled negotiator, but he's got no position. He's bound by either red lines or no lines at all.
I mean, you've got... It's like with the whole... People talk about how divided Labour is on Brexit, but then you've got... you know, the Soubries, the Heidi Allens on the Remain side, and then you've got the Rees-Moggs, the Boris Johnsons on the right wing Leave side, and they're tearing it apart, aren't they? Because then Theresa May, Davis, they're being pulled in opposite directions, aren't they?
Yeah, and Davis could get a deal if he had a strong hand, but he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the whole thing with the...
Each way.
Yeah, that was the whole election thing. I remember, I think it was Swiss who mentioned that at the start they were predicted to get over 100-seat majority, and then they didn't, you know.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I was watching some of your election footage earlier, and it was like, you know, they might get a 100-seat majority. This was around April time. They might get a 100-seat majority, or they might get 60 seats or something like that if Labour did really well. I remember you said that during the election, so... Yeah.
Oh, is that back when was that because there was a period during the election? I think it was just after the locals where Labour did quite badly in the run up to the general.
Oh yes,
and that's when I started wavering. I started having my doubts about whether Labour would do well or not in the election. But I kind of
it's like with the whole populist surge with Brexit, with Trump, with all this stuff. I mean, people were silent until they went to the ballot box, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, what we saw. I remember there was because I was doing these videos week in, week out, and there was one point where I'd said to someone, "I think Labour are going to break, 33% next week," and someone was like, "No way, that's going to be the ceiling for Labour if they get to 33% voting."
Yeah,
and then they ended up on 40 in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's like with our system, it's very messed up because they only got 262 seats, and Corbyn got more votes than Blair did in 2001 and 2005, and more than Cameron did in 2010 and 2015. You know.
So I mean, I do think that things bode well for Labour in the long term.
Yeah.
I think here's the question: as a hypothetical, say there were to be an early general election next year in 2019, after we've left the EU, but before we've left the transition period. How would you guys see that panning out?
I think Labour would get a majority, personally.
I think it all depends on the Labour position as they go in, because obviously this will be after the EU. We've left the EU, so there'll be Tories still. So we're outside the customs union.
Yeah.
And if Labour stick with that and say, well, now we've said we're leaving the customs union, we will continue on with that. And I could see a Labour majority. But if Labour still said, oh no, we should be in the customs union, we need to do this, we need to be soft Brexit, I could see in places like where Aston's from, in Walsall, I don't see us winning in places like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was my high school friend who tweeted out after the election, it's like, how the hell did this happen when he saw the other side of Walsall go to Tories? Yeah, he was shocked as well.
But it's because of the Brexit issue. It's all right adding another 20 voters in Islington South and Finsbury or wherever, but we need to win in Mansfield, where Ben Bradley's the MP. We need to win in Walsall. We need to win in North East Derby.
Yeah, because these are the so-called so-called Labour heartlands where the working class people live, and these are the places that voted overwhelmingly for leave. Because I know Walsall voted 67.9% to leave. Yeah, exactly.
I think for as long as Brexit still remains on the agenda, then the Conservatives will continue to be a threat to Labour on the issue of Brexit. But as soon as we're done with that, it should look better.
The NHS, then we could win a majority.
Well, here's the thing. Given that the Tories, they're announcing that they're going to be doing these wage increases, which, as you guys have rightly said, it's still a real terms cut in terms of the last decade or so. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's an increase from where it stands presently. And we're expecting probably this autumn, Philip Hammond is going to be announcing new funds for the NHS. They seem to be gearing up to do that. So I'd say that perhaps, obviously, I still don't trust the NHS in the Conservatives' hands, but I'd say that the state of the funding for the NHS will likely be slightly better by the time we come to the next election than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, because they sort of have to do that because they don't have a majority. So if they want to cling on to power, they need to soften their stance on austerity, don't they?
Well, yeah, because there's quite a few people in the Tory party, like Nick Bowles recently especially, who've been saying austerity needs to be finished. He's been talking about borrowing to build council housing and things like that.
Yeah.
And if they try to carry on with kind of Osborneomics, then people like Nick Bowles would end up voting against.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think it's just the fact they don't have a majority, and they were so confident that they'd get 100 seats maybe or something, a decent majority, but then again, the election was about Theresa May's strong and stable leadership. It wasn't about the Conservatives as a whole, was it?
Well, they didn't call the election to open up negotiations, cross-party negotiations about Brexit like they said they were. They had the general election because it was Labour's lowest polls, and they thought they knew that Theresa May was guaranteed another 5 years in Parliament with a massive majority where they could do whatever they wanted. And unfortunately, it just didn't pan out. And George may remember this. I said from the beginning, as soon as the general election was announced, I said there is no chance that they're going to win a majority. And now look, even with a supply and confidence deal with the DUP, they still don't have a majority.
I have to say that on in the week before, I was talking on Facebook with someone. I predicted the Tories to get 317 and they got 318.
Oh, wow.
So I missed by one.
Yeah, I remember it was Swiss's predictions. He predicted the Labour would get 261 seats and they got 262 as well. Yeah.
I wasn't too far off for the larger parties in the end. I completely buggered it with the smaller regional parties, but there we are.
You said the SNP would actually do decently. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I also had that. I was considering because I thought we were going to have absolutely no overall control, but I didn't see Sinn Féin picking up 2 seats from the SDLP in Northern Ireland, because if those 2 SDLP MPs were still there and they'd be sitting in Parliament, even though they'd be left-wing and opposed to the government, then that alone would put the government in an even more sticky position.
Yeah, but I'm not... Sorry.
They're already in a very sticky position anyway, because even with the deal that they've got with the DUPs, they're still one short of a majority. So they're still already in a very sticky position, regardless of whether Sinn Féin take up their seats or not.
Yeah.
It's still very much impossible for them alone to pass anything. They're really, really relying on the fact that the SNP abstain from a lot of votes that regard England. That's what they're relying on.
Yeah. But yeah...
And that's why we need to get SNP out of Westminster.
Yeah. Because I remember on Twitter it was Marie McFarlane tweeting a lot about the stuff about the SNP. They say they're left-wing, but they vote against a lot of the left-wing stuff in Scotland as well.
And look at the state of Scotland at the moment. As I've said before, I live on the border, and what they're doing in terms of transport and what they're doing in terms of primary education and what they're doing in terms of health is very similar to what we're seeing with the Conservative Party. For example, transport, in terms of roads and the state of the roads, they're far worse than they've been in a very long time. And some people have been told, actually, there's a road from where I live and it leads straight up into Scotland. It's about a 7-mile road, and some people and it's got a massive pothole which has led to it being closed. And some people have been told, you're going to have to wait 30 years. Never in your lifetime are you going to see this road opened again. That is one of the 2 roads that lead to Scotland from where I live, and it's very needed, but the SNP are saying we're not going to reopen that road for at least another 30 years. We don't have the money. In terms of primary education, it's dropped. Children actually passing exams has dropped to the lowest it's been for a very long time. And in terms of health, the SNP Scotland has dropped below Wales in terms of waiting times.
Yeah. Oh, and so I mean, the Tories love slagging off Labour when it comes to Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, but the SNP are doing far worse.
I think the number one issue to get the SNP on, though, is the issue of local councils. Because the way they get their money for all the free tuition and things like that is that they get a 2% block grant cut and they turn it into a 12 or 13, 14% cut for councils. Yeah. And then they moan at Labour councils for cutting spending.
I mean, let's be honest. The SNP are a one-issue party. All they care about is rejoining the EU. Let's be honest.
And getting themselves out of the UK. But what's actually really interesting, they want to remain in the EU because they get a lot of EU migrants that actually, in terms of free education.
Yeah, but in terms of when people bring this up, they say, "Oh, you're racist, you're this and that." But that's one of the big things with free movement. It's all about welfare, isn't it?
It's about welfare, it's about cheap labour. Yeah. You've got people that are coming over from places like Bulgaria, and Asim, we've said this before, that are being paid £1 an hour. Yeah. £2 an hour, and it's completely okay. That's totally fine. They're allowed to do that because we're part of the EU. We've got this free movement of people, and it means that, if you're an employer, let's speak as if we're employers now. If you were told, oh, you need to employ this person who is over the age of, who's 25 years old, you need to pay them a living wage, or we've got this migrant here from Bulgaria that you could pay £2. Which one are you going to choose? I know which one I'd choose.
Yeah, if I was a rich businessman, of course I choose cheap labour. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
that's why all the big banks and big businesses were funding the Remain campaign. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just exactly going back to Richard Branson. That's why he wants a second referendum. It's all about cheap labour and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, and privatisation and TTIP.
Yeah, well, TTIP. I think
Don't
it's dead, but-
TTIP, don't even.
Yeah, it's CETA, which is the carbon copy of TTIP for Canada, which America still uses to privatise stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason why Social Work England's being sold on, because we have CETA, the carbon copy of TTIP. But it's also the reason why Branson's able to purchase, bits of the NHS.
Yeah, I mean, people say... I don't understand the FBPE trolls. They all say, well, the NHS will be privatised unless we, remain in the EU, which is hypocritical. No, you won't. It'll be privatised even more.
It's crazy, and they say this for all sorts of things. That the NHS will come under threat if we leave the EU. That workers' rights will come under threat if we leave the EU.
That's the worst one with all the anti-union laws.
Oh,
yeah, and it's like, hang on a minute. Is it? Are you trying to tell me that before the EU we didn't have an NHS, and before the EU we didn't have the ability to legislate for workers to have rights? It's crazy.
I mean, most of our rights actually came before we joined what was then the common market. So I don't know what their point is.
Yeah, I did a tweet. It's probably one of my most retweeted tweets because George Galloway retweeted it. And I think it was 155, 160. And it was saying, how dare Follow Back Pro EU claim that the EU got our workers' rights. It was the hard work of hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of trade unionists up and down the country that went on strike, that fought for their rights. Not a couple of bureaucrats in Brussels.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I was looking at the so-called rights that EU give us, but they're substantially worse than the rights we have here. So, for example, I think it was maternity leave. EU is 14 weeks maximum, and here it's 52 weeks, isn't it?
What's that for?
Maternity leave.
Yeah, well, that's a really tricky one because it sort of goes on you choose. So. Whereas in the EU it's 14 weeks, and in the UK I think it's a whole year, is it? In the
52,
UK?
Yeah,
52 weeks, and obviously you have that choice to make that decision. So it's actually that's a very tricky one because people will sort of say, well, we don't want the 52 weeks.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's, for example, in Greece when they had the bailout referendum, they stopped collective bargaining, didn't they?
What's that? Sorry.
Collective bargaining in Greece. It was after the referendum. When they imposed austerity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly, that's another one. It's like, and what was the one that all the levers bring up when it comes to trade unions? Wasn't it the Laval case or something? I think it's the Laval case.
I honestly don't know, to be honest.
I mean, ask Jason. He's very good with this stuff on Twitter. But anyway, we can go back to Tony Blair. And speaking of FBPE, we can have a look at this My Life, My Say thing that Tony Blair loves to talk about. Everything. Oh,
I nearly vomited looking at it.
I want to bring this up actually. Everything I built is under threat. What do you guys think of that comment?
I don't know what he built. I was going to say I don't know what he built, but if it's under threat, then it can't be a bad idea.
Well, correction there. Everything Margaret Thatcher built is under threat. I think you should say that.
Exactly.
Oh God.
I don't know what he built, but if it's under threat, then
it's
hallelujah.
Good. Yeah, I mean it's good because. PFI, getting rid of manufacturing. I think that's one of the worst things that Blair did was, getting rid of manufacturing. We can't, make our way in the world anymore. It's all this so-called financial services, isn't it?
Well, I don't know who Blair thinks he is, but I don't know if he realises that a good percentage, at least 70% of the UK, cannot stand him. So I don't know who he thinks he is, and I don't know what platform he thinks he's got.
I think his ratings are like -60 or something. It's ridiculous.
He's a massive twat.
Yeah, oh God. Government and technology dilemma. Privileged to... Yeah, this was the one I retweeted where he says he should never again be able to walk free. That was the one. I think it's got like 73 likes now and 46 retweets, so... Yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah.
I'm loving this, by the way.
Yeah,
we never have enough Blair hate on my channel.
Yeah. Yeah, go... If you want a few minutes to just rip into him, go for it. Go for it.
Oh man, you're just going to give me an open platform for it?
Yeah, go for it. Seriously, we've got loads of time. Go for it.
Oh, Tony, you fuckwad, lying to us about Iraq. with those dodgy dossiers and your faulty intelligence, and then you still expect the British public to think that you're a reliable voice to be trusted on any issue whatsoever. When you say that you would go back and do Iraq all over again if you had the chance, when you haven't learnt the lessons from your centrist-style politics that hollowed out the support of the Labour Party and forced it leftwards to support Jeremy Corbyn. Tony Blair, you globalist fuck. There we go. I'm done. That's it for now.
Okay.
I'm giving you a standing ovation over here.
Yeah. I mean, anything. I mean, you, George and Calvin. You know, you say something as well because it's prime time to attack him. I think because we're on his page. So.
Well, I think everyone knows my opinions on Blair. I'm a socialist, and say no more. And I'd rather not spend my valuable time, spending the time to actually give him any time of day. Yeah. But I think my opinion on him is very well known. Can't stand the man. I think it's ridiculous that people like Ken Livingstone and George Galloway get suspended from the party when we've got a terrorist like him who is allowed to stay in the party. When he speaks out against the party.
Speaking of my life, my say. This is the one I wanted to bring up with the whole FBPE troll thing. What do you think of this? So,
isn't he just the creepiest looking thing? He actually looks like a demon.
Yeah, but then again, all the 1.5 million deaths on his hands. He has to be a zombie,
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll bring this up in a new tab. My life.
It's hilarious that he still thinks that he has some sort of platform in the United Kingdom.
But then again, it's these FBPE trolls. It's Open Britain. It's Progress, which I hate Progress. But anyway, it's these think tanks and pro-EU propagandists who bring him out. These are the people that still give him a voice, isn't it?
And it just so happens that, most of the liberal-style globalists are the ones who run the likes of the BBC, which is why Blair continues to get a platform on there as well.
Oh, God, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has so many interviews, and it's, it's like he had so many before the election, didn't he? He was speaking out against Jeremy Corbyn at every opportunity, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was even, when was it? Was it in I think it was the 2017 election, actually, where he was saying that the most important thing was to stop Brexit. So if there was so he was advising people in some cases to vote Lib Dem rather than vote Labour, depending on what their Brexit position was.
His politics are exactly the same as Lib Dem, so he felt right at home there, didn't he?
Pretty much, yeah. If you take away the cannabis legalisation and the voting reform, Tony Blair is basically a Lib Dem.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, what would I call him? Like a closet Tory is what I'd call him. But,
he's not even a closet. He's not even closeted.
But he praises Thatcher, so you can't really call him a closet Tory. Think about it, isn't it?
I just call him an ideological vacuum. That's probably the best way to describe him.
Yeah, I just call him a terrorist Tory scumbag. That's what.
That's basically what he is. Swiss, I'd be interested to hear because me, George, and Assam have talked about it quite a lot. But what are your opinions on Obama?
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean, back when Obama first got elected, I was pretty excited by it. Obviously, for most of my young life, I only remembered a President George Bush, and he was the Republican that took them into Iraq, so I wasn't very big on him.
Yeah.
And, Obama, Democrat, first black president, it all seemed very exciting. And then, I could certainly say that I view the Democrats as not being as bad as the Republicans, but that doesn't mean I really approve of them. I certainly don't think that Obama's foreign policy was that different from Bush's, really.
No, I mean, I think it was Jimmy Dore who said he got the same guy who did the foreign policy in Obama's cabinet. So,
sorry, guys.
Yeah, it was Jimmy Dore. He was doing one of his many rants against Obama, and he said he employed one of the same guys in his cabinet who did George Bush's foreign policy as well. Which is ridiculous, to be honest. But then again, he did drone bomb like 8 countries, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was stuff that Obama did and stuff that Obama attempted to do, which obviously I can commend. But the problem is that his overall stance, where he sat on the political spectrum, the fact that he was the first black president and this was supposed to be some kind of a wonderful breakthrough for black people out there in the country. And then towards the end of his presidency, you've got the Black Lives Matter movement, which kind of says, well, surely there's problems still going on there. You actually have to get an assembled activist group to try and look out for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's... but I think it's just the whole... you know, he's what I call him all the time. I say he's the prince of the liberal media, which is exactly that. He's just he says pretty things. That's all he's there for. He's a pretty face who says pretty things.
Yeah, he reminds me. Same with Trudeau. Like Trudeau will do nothing for the people of Canada, but then he'll say people kind and the Hill and what.
It's like we care.
Yes, well done.
It's like, but I think I was watching one of Jimmy Dawes' videos again. He said Obama is very good at saying a lot of nothing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot like Blair in that sense, actually.
Yeah. And I remember after the referendum happened, Blair was asked, will you accept the referendum result? And he says, no, Britain needs to rethink, which I think is really arrogant.
And as well as that, remember Obama advised against us voting to leave.
Oh, he did the whole speech
foreign
thing.
Interference in elections.
Yeah. Oh, and he said we'd be at the back of the queue, wasn't it?
Exactly, and then Trump said, you know, actually,
we'd be at the front of the queue, which is fair enough. But then again,
sorry. I was just going to say, and I love the way that's pitched as well. That, you know, a few Russian bots on Twitter was outside interference in the election, but yeah, you invite Obama over and put him in front of the TV cameras, and that is certainly not a state actor trying to influence how you vote.
But I mean, the establishment always toe the Russia line. Every populist movement is linked to Russia in the establishment side. So first of all, we had Brexit. You know, Russia did it. Trump, Russia did it. Italian elections even, Russia did it. You know, if Corbyn gets elected, I'm sure, especially with the whole Russia thing at the moment, I'm sure everyone would say Putin elected Corbyn, wasn't it? I think that's what people are going to say.
Oh, for sure. Like, I'll put it one way, right? You know how everything that the right doesn't like is communist? And everything that the far left doesn't like is racist or fascist. Yeah. And then everything that the centre doesn't like is Russia. Yeah. That's probably the way you can pitch it to me.
But I remember it was another one of those FBPE trolls. He literally said, in one comment, he said, you're a fascist for supporting Brexit and you're a communist for supporting Corbyn. So, which way am I then? You know, it's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous.
I saw this great cartoon, and it's Hillary Clinton on a bike. And she's riding along, then she gets like this, it's like a cocktail stick or something, and she sticks it in the spokes of her wheel, and then she falls off her bike, and she goes, Russia!
Yeah. Oh, God.
I think I've seen that,
Russia, it's my bike.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's my my friend who actually did this, so he was showing me some stuff on PowerPoint, so he's got a picture of my database lecture, and he's got a picture of Trump, and they basically come up together, and then Hillary comes down and says with a tinfoil hat on, it's the Russians. It's ridiculous, honestly. But the thing is, with Hillary, it's like with Blair again, she blames everyone but herself, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the thing is with Hillary is that she was only to blame for herself, because she is fundamentally racist.
Yeah, it's...
And people were wise enough to understand that, you know, she came out and wanted the African, Caribbean, African American vote, and when the stats came in, most African Americans voted for Trump because when you look at her past,
but I mean that's what people liked about Trump, because he. Sorry, what are you going to say?
I was just going to say I'm not sure if I've heard that statistic that most African Americans voted for Trump.
I think it was something
more
like
than what they expected.
A larger, that was
a larger number. I was just going to say, because I don't have the statistics to hand, but I was fairly sure it was something like 90% of the African American vote went for the Democrats.
Oh, is that true?
As I say, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I'm pretty sure.
Maybe I'm wrong then. But I think
the one Calvin's confusing it with is the white women voted for Trump.
Yes. White people majoritively voted for Trump.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's
white
what I
women
thought.
was quite a significant one. We'll pick up. It doesn't matter that we lose union workers in Michigan, because we'll win suburban housewives was their strategy. Trump actually won white women.
Oh yeah. Speaking of comments, Jason replied again, and he said, Viking and Laval cases are about companies using overseas contract labour to undercut local agreements, ECJ rules, that the right of freedom of association, which is freedom of employer to operate, took precedence over employment law in any member state. So exactly, that's what I was saying about the whole £1 minimum wage in Romania and Bulgaria, and they use it here.
Yeah, because the EU makes that completely legal.
Yeah, it's because it's the whole. I think two things for that. It's the freedom movement of capital, and it's the freedom movement of labour, isn't it? Those are the two things.
Yeah, Thatcher's creation, which now the left is proudly shilling for.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, speaking of the so-called left, let's have a look at some of this FBP propaganda. My Life I Say, Justine Greening.
Justine Greening.
Oh god. Well, this is recent stuff actually. I haven't seen this before. Looking up to 15 People's Advisory Panel. You know what I should do? Well, George, you should join.
It's Wales.
Oh, it's Wales. Oh, I was saying, if you live there, you should have joined and infiltrated and turned it pro-Brexit. You should have done that. Yeah. Very lucky to have powerful and. Okay, Justine Greening, powerful and passionate person in Parliament.
I'm sorry. She's the one that upheld increasing tuition fees to 9,250 from 9,000.
Yeah, but I mean,
powerful, passionate advocate.
She also introduced the TEF, which is actually a very important piece of legislation, which means that universities in the top certain percent, I can't remember the percentage, can actually charge up to 16,000 from it's 2019, I think it starts.
Yeah, oh wow! Because my uni is one of the highest in the country. It's TEF gold rated, so they can probably start charging 16 grand.
Yeah, gold rated. Yes, gold rated 16 grand.
Yeah, my uni's TEF gold. So yeah.
Oh right, okay, yeah. See, mine's bronze, so we're firmly stuck with 9,250.
I mean, you know, I might have to start paying that money because I'm one of the so-called valuable degrees. I'm studying computer science. That the Tories have said, you know, valuable degrees might have to pay. You know, they pay more. So you know, I might have to start paying.
That doesn't make any sense at all. Surely you encourage people to do like computer science or medicine or something like that, and you discourage people with higher fees for doing like flower arranging or gender studies or whatever it is they get.
Yeah, exactly. It's was it liberal arts as well? That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean it doesn't make sense because the people who do STEM degrees, they're going to earn more money and they're going to pay more taxes. So it's, you know, counterintuitive to increase tuition fees, isn't it?
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, I mean, I remember
when Catherine's a poor social worker and I'm just some kind of hippie activist at him who making his big money and he doesn't leave us behind.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard. I think I mentioned one guy. I met this guy at the gym who actually told me he knows a friend who studies CS here, and he did CS for his degree, and he went to, like, I think it was Goldman Sachs or something in London for his placement year, and he got 38 grand.
For his placement?
Yeah, for his placement year.
Gee whiz.
I know for...
That's like parents combined in about 20 months.
Yeah, exactly. I know for my placement year, for the good ones in Birmingham, so like Rolls-Royce and them lot, they, I think it starts from about 15 to 20 grand, so it's still really high for a placement year. So, yeah. I
mean, for my placement years, I think it's something like £500.
What? What? Really?
Because we get because we're encouraged to apply for bursaries instead of charging for our work.
Wow. I mean, that's how much money I get in my bank account to spend on accommodation each month. So yeah. Wow.
That must be nice.
500. Well, the thing is, I can't really spend it because I'm saving up money for next year to live out again. So, you know, can't really spend it at the moment. So yeah.
You're a liberal. You've seen before.
Yeah. Austerity.
I'd like to talk about this for a quick minute because I think it's quite relevant. Well, it's not relevant to this, but it's quite relevant to what's going on in the moment. Obviously, the Young Labour elections have just happened, and the Momentum slate have pretty much lost the big position. So I don't know, Swiss, if you have any idea why Momentum have gone from having a massive landslide.
Yeah.
Would you possibly be able to bring some figures up for it, or who's
what do you want me to
the election for the chair? It was like 50.5 for Mowich, wasn't it?
What was it?
Calvi. It was within 100 votes.
Yeah. Can you see what I'm typing?
Well,
Labour. What should I type?
Well, it was the Young Labour elections. I don't know if the statistics are online for all the positions, but particularly for the chair position, which is the biggest position, was expected to be a massive landslide to Lee Drennan, who lost it to Miriam Merwatch.
Yeah, see, I know a little bit about the internal politics of the Labour Party, but probably not as much as you do, having actually ran in those elections yourself. Like if it's possible for me to have a look at, say, who when was the last time these elections came up, by the way?
Well, this is the first. This was the first one.
This was the first one. Okay then.
I'm not sure if I'm sure.
It was the first election where every young Labour member had an opportunity to vote.
Yeah.
I see, and what happened? So the momentum candidates lost out, did they? Or
they lost in the bigger seats, and in some of the smaller seats as well. They lost. So, for example,
in the second biggest one, Lara won quite comfortably, by the sounds of it.
And were they losing out to people on the soft left or Blairites?
Well, Miriam. Well, Miriam was Progress-backed candidate.
What? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got her up on the screen right now. I didn't know that. So she was like indirectly endorsed by Blair, basically.
Basically, I have a theory about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because Lee Drennan suffered a bit of a negative campaign against him because he's been such an outspoken figure in favour of self-ID and has been having a lot of spats with Jennifer, who I get on quite well with, and he's just been dragged into the gutter quite a bit. And I think compared to Lara, who even though she supports self-ID as well, she's kind of said, she's kind of kept it down on the issues and focused on the issues that people really care about young Labour democracy and supporting Jeremy Corbyn and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, up to 9 viewers now on the stream, apparently.
And I know, particularly in some of the smaller ones, it was literally 10 votes in between the momentum candidates and other candidates. I know, particularly for my position, obviously, George, we were expecting to lose quite massively, but we actually got really close, and we was actually an opposition to the momentum-backed candidates. And it just makes me think that maybe if I actually did go out there and do a little bit more campaigning, I could have possibly have won and actually have been a threat to the momentum-backed candidates. I mean,
that's what people say about Labour in the election. I think it was his Jeremy Corbyn's brother, Piers Corbyn. He said, if Labour had an extra week, they would have easily won the election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the Tory campaign did just collapse.
Oh no, it was the whole manifesto, and then it was revealed that the membership didn't really get a say, and it wasn't the dementia tax, the whole U-turn, and she was like, nothing has changed, wasn't it?
Nothing has changed. Get the principles we set out in the manifesto.
Oh God!
Nothing has changed. We're just announcing a slight variation to the policy we printed. No difference.
No, honestly.
They called it.
So what I'm just trying to get a feel for with these Labour youth elections then is the sort of the spread of the non-momentum candidates. How many were distinctly right-wing or Blairite, and how many were sort of soft left or so-called moderate?
I'd say they were all pretty much Progress, apart from Calvin, who ran independent of Slate.
Yeah.
They were pretty much all.
I think I was probably the only candidate between a lot of the positions that didn't run on any slate at all. But I think left foot forward, they got quite a few candidates out, and they were quite for the regional roles were quite can't think of the word, quite out there.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem as well is because Momentum's such an internal organisation. They're talking about democratising a bit. Mm-hmm. A lot of people didn't actually pick the candidates that people were talking about wanting, especially in the regional ones. I think it hurt them. There was some big figures that people in the local region supported that were Jeremy Corbyn supporters that got overturned for someone that might be a bit more of a Momentum sycophant, not as popular, as charismatic or anything like that. Yeah. I think Momentum's internal, you have to call it kind of Stalinist in a way, the way they internalise and just completely disregard the members of Momentum.
Yeah, I mean,
people
was it when John Lansbury was running, wasn't like everyone freaking out or something?
Oh, that was for General Secretary when Lathman stood against he was an excellent candidate.
There was never any argument that he was ever going to win that, but in the NEC elections, the Momentum slate won by a massive landslide, really. But in the Young Labour elections, and this is what I'm asking, Momentum didn't do as well as everyone expected them to do. And I think maybe it's because momentum candidates assumed they were going to win, so they didn't really go out and do that much campaigning.
Yeah.
Do you think that may be why?
I didn't see anyone apart from Lara out campaigning. I think that's why Lara McNeil won by a reasonable amount.
Yeah,
she had a real
yeah.
campaign. The rest of them, I didn't really see.
I mean, that's exactly going back to the Tories. That's why they didn't. That's why they lost the election. Like they lost their majority because they didn't really campaign well.
Obviously, I can't really speak from any position of knowledge on the Young Labour elections, but what I would be interested to know, if any of you guys do, is what was the difference between the turnout for the NEC elections versus the Young Labour elections? Because your answer could lie there if there is a significant difference.
Yeah, there was a massive difference. Only 7,000 people voted. There's only 7,000 people voted for the chair and the NEC position, but there wasn't any other sort of information on other positions, other smaller positions.
Yeah,
I see, because I think that could be relevant, but as I say, I don't have too much information in front of me to look at, to be honest.
Oh,
yeah,
well. Yeah.
I think some of it might be to do with the fact that Young Labour is, I think me and Calvin are probably the only two Leavers in the whole of Young Labour, so them Ramona credentials might have won them votes as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I joined, you're up to 3, but I'm going to be like the hard. They're going to call me like the hard, Thatcherite Brexiteer, aren't they? They're probably going to label me as
Well,
that.
I'm the hardest Brexiteer in the moment, I reckon, in the whole of Young Labour.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, if I joined, I'd probably be just in the party in general. I'd probably be like the hardest Brexiteer they have.
Dennis is a harder Brexiteer than you.
Yeah, but I support his position. I support, no deal is a bad deal. If that's the case, I support Dennis on that. So
I support no deal is a bad
Dennis's
deal.
position is not a penny, and I kind of agree.
Yeah.
But it's something I could negotiate on, which is something he clearly.
Yeah, same here. I'm a hard Brexiteer like Dennis, but then again, he was working class. He campaigned for Leave in both referendums, and he voted Leave twice. So, he was always.
Yeah, and he voted against every treaty. He's the only person ever, because he's been there for every single vote on the EU, but against every single treaty, every single deal, everything.
Yeah, and I think it was some guy interviewed him around the referendum time. I think it was Casual Politics. On
I know
YouTube.
that Westminster interviewed him recently.
Of course. Yeah, and I think it was Casual Politics who interviewed him, and he said, "Why are you voting Leave?" And he said, "Because the EU will fail," and he's right.
Yeah.
Or even worse, the EU will succeed, and then it becomes the United States of Europe.
Yeah, and then if we stay, then we're screwed. So
Yeah, it's a double whammy basically, because if you stay and the thing collapses, then it's awful to be on the inside when that happens, and if you stay and the thing consolidates, then you're trapped inside forever.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, with the whole Remain campaign, they denied this time and time again. They said the EU won't have an army, they won't have a United States of Europe, we won't be forced to join the Euro, but we will. And I think it was Martin Schulz who said that any member state that votes no, they're going to get kicked out of the EU. So if we're going to get kicked out anyway, why not leave properly? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and it is because I think what Schultz has said, I think that may have been a proposal, but I know that it's certainly a rule currently that any new member states need to adopt the euro. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, but I still think if they're going to form a United States of Europe and we're in there, the only way it will work is for us to adopt it as well. So I think we will have to adopt it at some point.
Oh, I think you're right. I think inevitably, if we were, say we'd voted to stay in that referendum, right? I think inevitably, as soon as an incredibly Europhile government came to power, and to be honest, that could have been, say if Corbyn became the leader of Labour, whoever the next Labour leader would have been if they were a Blairite, they probably would have signed us right up. I mean, Tony Blair wanted us to join the Euro.
It failed his 5 tests, didn't it?
Yeah, and thank God for that.
Yeah, thank God, because, it's just, and I love the fact that people say pound sterling is worth nothing. Well, it's a $1.41 right now, and the euro is worth less, so we'd still end up with a weakened currency if we remained.
I think actually that's probably one of the best points to put to all these young people being drawn in by Tony Blair's pro-Europe movements at the moment. Just remind them all that he wanted us to join the euro, and that would have been a disaster. You don't even need to mention the rod.
It's all the same people that wanted us to join the euro. You had Nick Clegg, you had Richard Branson, you had all them lot, and they said it'd be a disaster if we joined the euro, but thank God we didn't.
Yeah, this is the one as well, because people are always talking about the favourite thing of FBP is the impact reports.
Oh, yeah.
These are written by similar people that said if we didn't join the euro, it'd be a catastrophe for our economy.
Yeah, I remember the big banks, they were all saying that the pound to dollar exchange rate would be pretty much parity at this point after we voted to leave, and it's like gone back to its almost pre-Brexit levels.
Not to mention the instant recession as well.
Oh,
yeah.
We'd instantly...
Budgets put up income tax.
Yeah, losing 800,000 jobs right away.
Yep, exactly. And as well, even these impact reports that have been made, first of all, they're impact projections. That is the much more accurate way to put it. And second of all, even let's take the numbers at face value, okay? Let's assume, for the sake of argument, these numbers are 100% correct, okay? Even the percentage decrease in GDP is still stretched across, 10 or 15 years in these impact projections? So really, year on year, you're only looking at losing out on about 0.5% of GDP. Many people who are aware of the warnings made for voting for Brexit thought, you know what, there is the possibility of a short-term economic hit. I value being outside of the EU border.
That's what you said in your stream about the whole United States of Europe thing. Same with me, I'd much rather, get it over and done with and shake off the effects in the short term than, be dragged out of the long term.
I mean, like, it's like if I've got a pair of shoes that are falling apart and they've got holes in them. If I buy a new pair of trainers, that is a short-term economic hit because I'm losing money. But guess what? I'm able to go outside and walk in the mud. There's an advantage to it.
I may steal that analogy.
Yeah.
Oh, God. No one can do analogies like Swiss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've just brought up a Guardian article about it. So, the Blairite Guardian would make Britain poorer significantly, staying very closely linked. And I remember it was I think it was a 2% decline of GDP if we stayed in the European Economic Area. So yeah, I think it's ridiculous. But it's BuzzFeed as well. I remember when those were leaked. Yeah.
Oh, that reputable news source, BuzzFeed.
I watched. I only watch their videos for the fun of it. Really, that's all. It's just entertainment, really.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I watch bloody InfoWars from time to time because it's funny.
You were talking about David Icke on your stream, weren't you? Watching him.
I was. Yeah. I mean, I do like his stuff on Brexit though, David Icke. And he said, they were going to form a United States of Europe. I've been saying this since the 90s, and he's right, because all the politicians have been saying it, but they haven't done it yet, because, as David Icke would say, it's a totalitarian tiptoe, because they know everyone's opposed to it, but they can only do it bit by bit, treaty after treaty, and then it will eventually happen, I'd say, within the next 10 years. I think all they need to do is, push a button and it'll happen.
It's that whole thing about... Isn't that the thing where, if you cook a lobster or a frog really slowly, they apparently won't notice over time?
Oh, yeah.
Until it's too late.
Yeah.
It's that kind of allegory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doing it by the back door.
Yeah.
That's how they did all of the treaties and stuff, the Constitution.
Yeah, and what was it? It was the whole TTIP thing. It was all negotiated in secret, wasn't it?
Oh God, we dodged a bullet with TTIP. I'm so pleased Trump pulled out.
But then again, we have CETA, which Theresa May signed in October 2016, which is basically the same.
Yeah, just with the Canadians instead of the Americans.
Yeah, but then the American companies can still go through Canada to privatise everything.
Which is another thing about Trudeau,
Yeah, but then again, he's liberal in every sense of the word, social and economic. You have to remember that.
I would argue that socially, perhaps, but economically,
Right.
Right.
I think in the true word of liberal's true meaning, he is, which is basically right.
Oh yeah.
Laissez-faire. Yeah, deregulation, everything. Oh yeah. Speaking of liberals and FBP nonsense, let's go back to what was it? My Life, My Say. We can have a look at some of their stuff. But yeah, it's just it's I don't get this whole thing. But yeah, it's youth movement. I don't understand, why do they? Yeah, this is the one.
Kermit the Frog's only got one like though.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite sad.
Friday is it? Well, I'll do him a favour.
Awkward.
I'll do him a favour. I've added mine.
Oh, there we go.
Charity.
You've just made up 50% of the likes they've got on that post.
Yeah, and here's the other one. If you haven't already watched, and it says about the impacts of the EU referendum on young people. I think young people have dodged a bullet with Brexit, to be honest.
To be honest, I think young people are waking up, and I think young people are very discredited in that terms. And I think a lot of Europhiles expect to be able to sway young people, but we're waking up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my friend earlier, and he said same with me. He voted Remain in the referendum, but now he'd vote to leave. And it was in high school. His economics teacher, funnily enough, he voted to leave, and everyone was calling him racist.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I decided not to vote leave, because I didn't understand really what it was, but all I knew was that it was racist, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, that's all that was pushed down my throat.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to watch the liberal media, you're going to hear all that crap, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, as you guys probably well know, that's part of the reason why I started that YouTube channel in the first place, because there were very few Brexiteers on the left, from anything I was trying to look up. So I thought, well, I'm one, at least.
I mean, it was Windows on the World, a great channel to check out. Jeremy Corbyn's brother actually did a video before the referendum called Why Remain Hysteria is a Joke, and he gave all the reasons why the left should leave. And everyone in the comment was saying, why doesn't your brother have any balls to vote leave? He was talking about Jeremy, you know.
But only Jeremy knows what he voted for when he went to that ballot box.
Yeah. Yeah. But then again, it's the Remain campaign, don't they say nobody knew what they voted for? But David Cameron himself said we vote to leave the single market and customs union. Yeah. So, you know, it's straight on the pig's mouth, you know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the referendum was his idea, and he basically said what we'd be voting for, so there's no denying it, is there?
There was a very clear outline of what was going to happen when we left.
Yeah.
What we were kept in the unknown about was what a negotiation was. We didn't know what that was. And I think still we don't really know what that is.
Yeah.
All we know is that we want them to hurry up, and we want to be out of the EU.
Yeah.
We don't want to, you know, but we've been forced upon this transitional, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And no one wants it. Even the Remainers, they don't want it.
Yeah. I mean, let's just... I just love the fact when the FBP people say, let's... you know, you're still going to go off the cliff edge. But to be honest, let's go off the cliff edge and start swimming. That's what I'd say. You know.
Turn the cliff edge into a diving board.
Yeah, exactly. You know, take a leap of faith. Why not? But yeah, here's another one. Another more Remain propaganda. What do you think of The Independent? I think it's ridiculous, all the propaganda they post about Remain.
Yeah, I mean, the Independent, The Guardian, they're both pretty heavily Remain.
The liberal media, BBC included as well.
But I mean, in the sake of fairness, it's probably worth pointing out you get a fair new right-wing publications that are quite clearly pro-Brexit as well.
Yeah, you've got Telegraph, Express, Westminster, those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's the issue that I have. Can you guys name any major media outlets on the left that support Brexit?
Morning Star.
No.
Morning Star.
Yeah. And I think there were
that's probably I'd say Morning Star.
Yeah, and it was I watch was it Pro Socialism? His first video was Reasons for Lexit, and he talked about the left wing papers that would support Leave. It's quite interesting.
I mean, the only newspaper that I will ever read is The Socialist, but it's not mainstream at all, really. Well, it's not mainstream, to be fair.
Yeah, like all the left media, the Mirror, Independent, and Guardian, all campaign for Remain.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all very pro-Remain, aren't they?
Brexit Engagement Youth Charity. Oh my God.
The thing is, they don't give a fair hearing, and regardless of whether you like the government or not, they need, in terms of Brexit, to me, it isn't a party political issue, and it needs a fair hearing.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, Irish border, they bought at that. Me, Calvin, and George agree that it should be a united Ireland. Because Swiss, you've never talked about this. So, what are your views on this?
Well, the problem is that if I come out for a united Ireland, then straight away that position is completely in opposition to the Good Friday Agreement, which is what has offered us peace in the first place. Now, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys, I think it would be easier for all people concerned for Ireland to be one united country.
Exactly.
But it's difficult for me to support that as a position because I know it could lead to violence.
I mean, it's the easiest thing, but then you've got the IRA, you know, all these other things that could happen. It could be like 1970s all over again.
The problem for me is when we voted to leave the EU and we were told and we were brought to the attention that a border would be harder, you had all these millions of Northern Irish citizens who are unionists flocking to get an Irish nationality as well. So to me, although Swiss, I can understand, there will be infiltrated on a hell of a lot of islands.
Yeah.
If the issue is so widely, you know, it's such a difficult issue, it would be easier to give them a united Ireland than to continue to have this border that no one in Ireland wants.
I think the thing is, though, the only way... I'll just say this quickly, sorry. I think that the only way, though, that you could legitimately go about that is to have a democratic referendum of the people in Northern Ireland to decide.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
And I don't think that would ever happen. I think the people in Northern Ireland would probably always want to stay part of the UK.
Yeah, there's far more unionists than...
I'm not sure, because in the Assembly elections in 2017, Sinn Féin and SDLP won more than DUP and UUP.
Sorry, carry on.
And also the demographic changes, the birth rate amongst the Protestant communities, 1.9 per 2 people. Amongst the Catholic community, it's over 4. It's getting gradually closer and closer.
Yeah.
And under the Good Friday Agreement, it says that it's for the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland at Westminster, so in a Labour government, if the shadow team that became the cabinet, that'd be Owen Smith's job, call a border poll, and then for that decision to be made. I think a border poll is something that should happen, considering they haven't voted on it properly ever in a referendum. They had their referendum in 73, but it was boycotted by the National.
What I'll say in regards to that, though, George, Sinn Féin and the SDLP make up a majority of the Northern Irish Assembly, but it isn't because people were turning to Sinn Féin, and it wasn't because people were turning to the SDLP, it's because people were splitting the unionist vote, so people were voting for the DUP, for the PUP, people were sort of splitting the unionist vote, and that's where it's sort of had a downfall.
That's how it's happening in Westminster elections, but for the Northern Irish Assembly, it's under proportional representation. And more people voted for nationalist parties as well in pure votes as well as seats than unionist parties.
Yeah.
In terms of giving preferences as well.
But there is still a larger amount of, regardless of whether they're voting for the unionist parties, there's still a lot more unionists than there are nationalists.
It's tight now. It used to be around 60-40. I'd say it's 51-49. It all depends on turnout now.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously, in 5 years' time, it'll probably be majority nationalists.
I think regardless of where the support perhaps lies for a unified Ireland or not, would you guys all agree, though, that the only way to go about achieving that, if that were to be the aim, would be through a referendum of sorts?
Yeah, through
completely agreed,
Good Friday Agreement about calling a border poll.
Yeah. That's good, because it's kind of like the position I have on Scotland. I don't want Scotland to leave the UK, but if a referendum of the Scottish people were to ask for that, then, you know, I don't want a Catalonia on my hands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same with me, but my problem with the SNP is they'll always crawl back into the EU because Jimmy Cranky is a big fan of Angela Merkel, so, you know, that's the problem with it.
Well, the Scots will have to wage their own war for independence from the EU in that case, but that'll be their problem if they still leave the UK.
If they go into the EU, they'll be dragged into this United States of Europe, and we'll basically be surrounded by it.
Well, there's very little that can be done about that from our perspective.
But yeah, going back to the whole FBP thing, it's the whole Brexit event. Northern Ireland, the priorities of young citizens in Northern Ireland. Why Brexit matters so much to children and young people in Northern Ireland. Freedom of movement across the border is so important for young people. Oh my god. Okay. Anti-Brexit.
But the thing is, young people, anybody in Northern Ireland has the option now to get a nationality, an Irish nationality, which will make it easier for them to cross. Well, it'll have the same restrictions as it has now, to cross the border. Nothing will change as long as they've got an Irish nationality, and it's open to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, unionists are flocking to get their their Irish nationality just because they want to be able to access the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah. Oh, I think moving on from Brexit a little bit, I think, George, you mentioned this, that we'd bring this up in the stream about, was it Paul Embry and the whole, you know, that whole, was it the Metropolitan Police and the, you know, thinking a hate crime?
Yeah, it's a it's kind of free speech issue.
Yeah, what day was this? Because I have to scroll around.
Oh, it's I think it's above this.
Above.
I believe. But it's below this. It must be lower.
Yeah,
There's me.
What's the free speech issue it's concerning?
Oh, it's
about the right. Was it the right to be offended and the whole thing? If you can.
It was about hate crimes. I've got a link. I've got the link here to his tweet.
Yeah. I'll just scroll down so I can show everyone because I'm streaming this. So, that here we are. This is the
here it is.
police website. Read it. Then again and again and again. You may not have committed a criminal offence, but if we don't like what was in your head, we can make you a criminal. So yeah, I'll just bring this up. If someone does something that isn't a criminal offence, but the victim or anyone else believes it was motivated by prejudice or hate, your class is a hate incident that the perpetrator has done may not be against the law. Their reasons for doing so it may be possible to charge them with an offence. So it's like but the thing is, like say you could easily use that to, you know, you could point at someone in the street and accuse them of a crime. It's that easy now, isn't it?
That's terrifying. Can you read that out one more time for us?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
I'll read it a bit quickly.
It's incredibly worrying.
Yeah.
So if someone does
Like Paul
something...
Embry says there, fault right.
Sorry, I'll read it out. If someone does something that isn't a criminal offence, but the victim or anyone else believes it was motivated by prejudice or hate, we will class this as a hate incident, though what the perpetrator has done may not be against the law, their reasons for doing it are. This means it may be possible to charge them with an offence. That's it.
It's scary stuff. They've changed their website since Paul Embry flagged it up because it got a lot of retweets and they realised. But that's worrying.
Yeah, I mean, it's people talk about 1984, but this is it. You know.
Yeah, I find that
like
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So if someone was, so let's say someone walked past you on the street and accidentally nudged you with their arm, you could go, did you nudge me because I'm black or because I'm a Jew or something like that? And go, yes, you did. We'll get you.
Yeah.
It's that kind of worrying
I mean, but the thing is,
where you
if you're convicted, for example, let's say if you burgled someone's house, the victim could actually easily tack on even more crimes onto that, couldn't they?
Yeah, they could say that they burgled you because you're a minority or because you're LGBT or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, like someone who, you know, they're so-called gender fluid people, they could say, arrest him because he doesn't acknowledge my right to be an attack helicopter, you know, that sort of thing.
But that's another one as well that Paul Embry brought up is the dead naming issue. And I mean, I don't have a particular thing. I wouldn't have a particular kind of motivation to go around deliberately offending transgender people because they've gone through a lot and I support their basic rights.
Yeah, but
over 50% in a poll said that they would want dead naming to be a hate crime. So that's saying that if you said to someone that was born male that now is living as a female, that if you call them he, you should be prosecuted. And even though I probably wouldn't do that, that is a gross injustice to free speech.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's along the same lines. It's punishing people for what they say or think.
Yeah. I mean, tomorrow I could say I'm an M1 Abrams tank and go around walking around campus and then pointing at people, accusing them of being, you know, denying my right to call myself a tank. You know.
Go on.
I was going to say, I think it probably has some sort of injunctions to it, but if that's a genuine screenshot from the Met Police website, then that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, imagine, like in this politically correct world, especially at university, imagine the amount of students getting convicted. It's like, especially because I'm a Brexiteer, I'm probably one of the only ones on campus. People could start pointing at me and, start saying, get this man charged, you know what I mean?
Well, all you need to do then is to identify being a Brexiteer as like your ethnicity, and you can be a victim of hate crime.
Oh yeah. No. I'll wear a ripped up EU flag as a cape, and then I'll go around saying I'm a Brexiteer.
Yeah, I mean,
this extends to the Young Labour elections. I think it links in quite well now. We've gone on to this in general, and I remember on the Young Labour elections, we already have self-ID as a policy, which is illegal, but we're doing it anyway. It's under the Equalities Act in 2010. All women shortlisted discrimination, but they're allowed because it's a sex-based protection. Sex is a characteristic. And gender isn't a protected characteristic.
No.
And so currently, Young Labour is actually operating an illegal policy, and that's what the crowdfund is about. Because Labour nationally want to make it something that the National Labour Party do, not just Young Labour.
Because I remember this was Jonathan Pye. He made a video about the Labour conference, and he said there's so many safe spaces, and it's like, don't say anything I disagree with. That is like a chant, that sort of thing. That mentality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
And we have at some point we'll be having Jennifer on, and we can talk about this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Detail. She knows her stuff about this. You say something there, and she'll tell you the truth about it.
Yeah. We can, how about we just have a look at some FBP comments for a bit, because, having Swiss on here would be a lot of fun, I think.
What are you expecting out of me?
FBP, it'd just be fun,
It's a little segment that we've decided on, that at the end of every podcast we're just going to hashtag FBP in the search bar and just...
Yeah, no, I wanted to ask you about this, Swiss, because what time do you do your Sunday stream? Because I was thinking of doing something called the Sunday roast, where we just go around, going around looking at FBPE people, but I don't want to collide with your stream, so,
my stream...
His stream's gone for hours, though.
They can do, yeah. My streams, in the last few weeks at least, they tend to start just after 12 and finish at about 6 p.m, but it can vary a little bit. But I'd say this at least, like, don't feel at all that you need to schedule your content around my content. Feel free to do it whenever you want.
You're helping us by, like, advertising it, and so a lot of our original viewers are going to be people that view you as well, and if they've gone through you, they're more likely to view you.
We're just a community, really. We want to keep each other up. We don't want to detract from each other. So
that's quite a fair point. Well, if that's the case, then you want to do it on a Sunday and you don't want to conflict with the stream, I'd suggest doing it in the evening then.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a good idea. But yeah, what I was thinking was, thinking of that relating to Brexit, we need a transition period between streams. You don't want to have a cliff edge where you jump into Swiss's stream, Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's get on to this.
Within the overall framework of the stream, obviously, but ensuring that the objectives are met through kind of...
You're going to set out some red lines, and you've got to make sure they don't turn pink. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah. Our thinking about that, our profile picture should be like Rees-Mogg or something to just trigger people. Yeah.
You should have like Rees-Mogg, but with like a little communist hat with the red star on it or something.
Yeah.
Outside of the Kremlin.
Yeah.
Tinted
with the hat adjusted.
Yeah. So what's this segment then? Is it just reading out FBP comments?
It's like a reaction sort of thing, when people have
debunking.
When people have react videos, it's that sort of thing. But we actually talk about it and debunk it, basically. Here you go, Brexiteer. Well, it should be interesting if we have a Remainer on. We can have a look, like my uni friend who was going to come on in the future. Maybe we can have him on. And
I think when we have Ida on, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many FBPEs.
I'm really going to have to protect Ida when she comes on our night.
Yeah, because
from me and Aston, savages.
From me mostly, because I'm the hard Brexiteer. I'm the hardest out of you lot, so.
You make me look like a soft Brexiteer, but I'm really hard Brexiteer as well.
Oh wow! No, but the thing is with me, you're working class, I'm a middle class metropolitan elite, so I'm even more of a hard Brexiteer, if you will.
We're all Chukaramuna compared to you, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah. 53% Brexit. The Young Remain campaigners are quite something. Yeah. Spoke in front of the European Parliament. Okay, let's have a look at this. They are old. They must be confused, bigoted Leave voters. I mentioned something about Vince Cable, where he was saying, was it all the old people voted Leave and all like white people? And I mentioned
white nostalgia he called it.
Yeah, it's like is that Remainers being racist? Do you know what I mean?
Despite the fact that there's two mixed race people on this street that are Brexiteers.
Yeah, you're half Asian. I'm full Asian. So yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, me and Swiss are what I think some of the BNP supporters would call racially pure.
Yeah.
I'm a boring old whitey.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. Anyway.
I've got an Irish name, so my last name's Irish, so therefore I'm also not pure.
Oh wow!
Even though
they call you an IRA scumbag and a traitor, then you know.
Probably. You know that is the fact that whenever I'm on the doorstep, it's the one thing that I'm told: IRA supporting scumbag.
What Jeremy? When it comes to Jeremy Corbyn.
When me and Jeremy Corbyn went out canvassing, people opening the door that I've been to before that I was apparently staunch conservatives that were in pictures with him. I was like, what is happening? Really?
Oh, no, they were probably thinking in their heads, I want a picture with a communist, so I might as well get it with Corbyn, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I got a selfie with Paul Nuttall, and I don't agree with his politics.
I remember that was one of your first videos, I think. It was, yeah, exactly.
It was just hysterical. I was like, and people saying that they agreed with him, and I was like, what on earth? I came to your doorstep a week ago and you told me that you were a staunch conservative. I couldn't stand the man.
I think because Corbyn's an old school lefty and he taps into their sort of politics, isn't it?
Corbyn's just a very clever man and knows how to win the vote, really.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He's much more of a consensual man compared to John, who's a bit of a hitter.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Okay. Brexit lemon. I don't understand about Varoufakis. He's basically said the EU are terrorists, the EU, the Troika, but he said some very pro-Remain stuff. It doesn't make sense to me, really.
Yeah, I was going to actually say earlier on in the stream, have we found out whether he's now pro-Remain?
Yeah, he's a Remain and reformer.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think me and Calvin have talked about this a couple of times, and reform's impossible because the plan of the EU has been set out since the beginning, since, was it Jean Monnet, where he said a United States of Europe, so,
I mean, Varoufakis, from what I've gathered, seems to have the belief that if we can get everyone to rise up in all of the EU countries simultaneously, we can reform it.
But that will never happen. I
don't think that's possible, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he also thought that because Greece now has decided it's not going to leave the euro or leave the EU, that he was worried that Britain leaving would mean their only potential ally to save them from any more bankruptcy deals or anything of the like would now be out of the tent. So I think that's why he ended up saying Remain and reform.
That's a pretty good point, actually, because considering that the UK has always been, the man on the outside in the inside as far as the EU goes, we could have been a potential useful ally of our Euroscepticism. And now that we're buggering off.
Yeah, because we're not actually a member of the Euro and stuff like that, so we can help them in that respect.
There's a comment in the side chat of your YouTube stream where Jack James has said he's actually leave, reform, and rejoin, apparently.
That's irony, to be fair.
I mean, is that Scotland? Essentially, is that SNP?
Yeah, but I mean, leave, reform,
I think what he's saying is that he wants to leave, shock the EU into reforming, and then go back in.
Yeah, but I mean, they've had 2 chances to do that. Well, actually 3, because I think it was first Brexit, then it was Marine Le Pen did really well in the first round of the French elections, and then the AfD got like 93 seats in Germany, and now the Lega Nord and Five Star have got in. So, they've had so many chances, but they haven't budged. I mean, that proves how reformable the EU is, isn't it?
Yeah. Harold Wilson tried in 1975 and got nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, David Cameron had loads of ideas, you know, to basically have a Brexit within the EU, a lot of his reforms, and they gave him nothing, you know.
Yeah, but Cameron, you could go, well, he's probably a hopeless negotiator, but you couldn't say that about Harold Wilson.
He was a staunch Europhile anyway. He did the whole Project Fear nonsense, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we are. Brexit minister tells House of Lords that no in a meaningful vote will remain cliff edge. This is UK Parliament being... Well, the thing is, the Remainers... I remember Gina Miller, wasn't it? She was like, Parliament should have a meaningful vote. But the only meaningful vote they can have is no deal or accept the deal. And you can't vote to stay in because, you know, we've already passed an act which basically makes the referendum binding. So, you know, that's the only option.
Yeah, this is the thing that I think first separates me and Asim on the issue and makes him slightly more of a hard Brexiter. And it's, I think Parliament should be able to overturn the referendum. I wouldn't want them to, but they should be able to. Yeah. And then if these MPs betrayed them, then we should get rid of them. But I don't think that they should be stopped from being able to turn down the deal and send them back, or if necessary, remain. Because I think Parliament is the sovereign body, and they should be allowed to do that if necessary.
Yeah, but I mean, Parliament is full of Blairites and Tories, so you know they're probably going to vote to remain anyway.
I agree. I agree with Parliament being a sovereign body, and it ought to have the right to have meaningful decisions made within it. But I would point out that both of the main parties in the last election both had backing Brexit in their manifestos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that
it would be a betrayal. But
if you're going to have Parliament,
so if they did
legitimately voting against it,
then we'd have to get them out next time.
Yeah, I'd say by all means, if they want to try and block Brexit, let's have another election. Let's have pro-Brexit and anti-Brexit parties running.
Oh yeah, Swiss Lib Dem fight back.
Oh, Lib Dem fight back.
Oh yeah, Daddy Vince's 300-seat swing.
That's the one, the great mythical swing that will come along at some point. So.
Well, yeah, I mean...
That was actually one of my most retweeted tweets, was when I was taking the piss out of Vince Cable for this Lib Dem fight back. I think he got something like 800 retweets or something.
Yeah. Oh, I'll check the status of my Tony Blair retweet thing. It's got 52 retweets and 84 likes, so that's good. It's getting there. Anyway, yeah. Oh, ABTV. I'll mention this to Swiss. I thought that ABTV stood for Anthony Blair TV because they're all stooges for Tony Blair.
What does ABTV stand for then?
It's anti-Brexit tactical.
Anti-Brexit tactical voting.
But I thought Anthony Blair TV sounds good because they're all stooges for him, aren't they?
Oh yeah. The acronym works, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, he's got the globalists on his side. He has enough money, so he might as well make his own TV station or something. You know. I mean, that's, you know, the Ramonas can buzz off there instead of flooding our Twitter feeds with all that. They can just comment on his channels and stuff, can't they? I mean, it'd be good, because we could just make fun of him all day. So digital activities need to be taxed. Okay. Let's have a look. If you think of a better fish, Elijah Fry, okay. About time. Anti-Brexit rallies this March will show Remainers will not be silenced. Oh my god.
There's at least 20 of them there, so well done.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, it's higher turnouts than May's so-called public meetings. Let's be honest, at least they got that on their hands.
I mean, you know,
I campaign rallies, 13 with an ice cream van.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't seek to silence them, but I would absolutely ignore the shit out of them.
No, I don't know, because I think it was a couple of people that were asking me, why don't you block them? But it's just too much fun. I like making fun of them and trolling them. It's just, you know, if they're saying it's social network after all the stuff that they say is public. So if they post crap like this, I'm more than happy to, you know, mess with them, you know.
Oh, now this is fun. I'm always constricted with trying to have a sense of balance on my channel, and here we can just be full-on Brexiteers and shit on Tony Blair.
You know what? We should.
We don't do balance. Balance is overrated.
Yeah. You know what we should do? We should have a regular, or maybe you could maybe have a Sunday stream special where we just do this. You know.
A Sunday stream special where we're even more left-wing and even more pro-Brexit than we usually
Basically, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can have like a Stizer and a couple of other Brexit guys on there, you know. Yeah, it'd be fun to see what Stiza has to say, actually. I mean, he could be on... yeah, sorry.
He's watching now, actually.
Really?
I think he's in the side chat on YouTube, yeah.
Well, I can't see it because I'm screen sharing, so... But what is he saying? Because, guys, you know, tell me what they're saying, because I don't have a second monitor here, so I can't tell.
He said that... He asked, why is this video in the topic of gaming? It would probably get more views if it was in politics.
Oh, shit. I think it's probably my graphics card, because I've got a graphics card that's actually doing the streaming, so... I think because it's gaming software, GeForce Experience, maybe that's why. I'll
that
try.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because
You can
You should
change
do
it in the
moving
second
that.
afterwards.
I can try, but I don't know. I'll see what I can do. But this is my first stream, so I'm just getting used to it anyway.
Oh, that's fine. You can go to your YouTube settings later and edit your video and change which category they're a part of.
Yeah, because it's a creative studio. I'll do that after the stream. So exactly what referendum result needs to be nullified. Hold a new one. FBPE, we're the opposition now. Stop Brexit. Cambridge Analytica. Traitor Farage. Oh, AC Grayling. George, you love this guy, don't you? You always talk about him.
This man drives me. He makes me physically sick.
Yeah, it's a little like Tony Blair with me. Every time I see him, he makes me sick. The same. Yeah, exactly.
The referendum result cannot stand if there is any taint of covert interference. The probability that there was
Barack
interference
Obama.
is extreme. Yeah, I was going to say Barack Obama. Oh, excuse me.
It's alright.
No, the referendum result stands. People need to get over that. We had a vote. The vote delivered a result. We need to implement the result of that referendum.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Yeah, I'll just open him in a new tab. We can go back to him later. What's the next thing we can chuck into the Thames to stop Brexit FBPE?
That is quite a funny picture, to be fair. Caution slip.
Yeah. You know, really...
Did you guys see that Rees-Mogg got told that he wasn't allowed to board the ship because he didn't get any, what's it called, from the Transport for London?
No.
I'd heard something about that they'd ran into a little bit of trouble when they were pitching their protest today, but I didn't know the details of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure on the details. I haven't really looked much further into it. But yeah, he got sent away because he didn't get accepted by the Transport for London, which is hysterical.
It's something about could UK Brexit want fishing industry hits the workers who could vote Brexit? No, the EU hit our industry. That's why they voted leave. That's the problem. They don't realise that.
What a crazy assumption there.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess this is the FBP
because the EU actually paid fishermen to destroy their boats, which is ridiculous. So, yeah. I mean, but Farage throwing fish into the Thames, well, actually, a lot of the fish we catch, such as haddock, we have to throw back because it's not allowed under EU law. So, you know, we're still throwing back fish that we couldn't catch anyway. So, it's ridiculous. I like this guy. He just tweets about the time until Brexit. So, time until Brexit is 372 days, 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. So, Swiss, what are you going to do on Brexit Day? How are you going to celebrate?
Oh, man.
Stream.
Stream.
No. We should all. You should have your Sunday stream cohort, and we should have our own little cohort. We should do like a merger stream and just celebrate all day, like a 24-hour thing.
At the risk of sounding like one of these awful racists that the liberal media wants to portray us as, I might buy myself a little miniature Union jacket hanging out.
Same here. You know
I'll
what?
buy
You know
a
what?
red flag.
I have
We'll see.
a Remainer uncle, and you know what I should buy him? I should buy him a UK independence mug and send him in the post for the day. Yeah.
I think on Brexit Day I'm just going to post lots of really cheerful messages on Facebook, which will upset all my Remainer friends I have on there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, really enjoying this. Oh yeah, Farage. What can he get rid of this? Automotive industry down the Thames. Well, the EU. It's like the EU controls all the automotive industry stuff anyway, so I don't see what his point is there. Most of the young and other EU member states are unemployed. I'm sure our youngsters won't thank you. FBP fascists wanting to say. He's right there.
Fascist.
Yeah. Cameron Hickman liked it as well.
Oh, sweet, Cameron, you got a shout out there, buddy.
Yeah, he follows me too, so yeah. He's getting there when it comes to followers. Well, yeah, Swiss, I think I have more followers than you do, actually. I don't know how I did that, but anyway.
Well, I mean,
more than you actually. I have 301. Getting.
Yeah.
By the sounds of it, you guys are a lot more familiar with and active on Twitter than I think I have been for a while. I've only really started getting into it in the last couple of months.
Me and Calvin are the worst ones for being overly active on Twitter. We have been for ages.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Twitters with like thousands and thousands of tweets. My record so far is like 4,100, so I need to get up there. You know.
Yeah, I think mine's got about 15,000, but I've been active on Twitter for a few years now.
Yeah, but you've been doing all this Labour stuff, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and that as well. I've been in and I do have a big following, but they're not always active.
Brilliant little read. Anna Subri and Shukramuna, the Brexit. What? Let's have a look at this.
When Mum and Dad tell you about remaining. How much fun is that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You did as was it Alternative Andrew Marr show where they're like properly in coalition with one another.
Oh yeah. You know, a really close coalition.
Yeah. We need to have a liberal mind and keep our options open. You know. Yeah.
They're actually touching each other in that photo.
Yeah.
They're
let's be honest. Let's be honest. They're in so love with the EU. They're in love with each other, basically, aren't they?
I mean, is it time to bust out the old "Still a Better Love Story Than Twilight" line at this point?
Yeah, yeah. I've seen what was it with people saying hashtag I love EU, which is ridiculous as well.
Oh, I saw a song. There was a parody song someone had made round about the Christmas time, which was "All I Want for Christmas Is EU."
Oh God.
And I didn't realise what it was until it got to the chorus, and I had to take a double take and just look at it again, and kind of like it's internally vomited and screamed
I bet you got triggered after it though.
Oh, I got massively triggered.
I remember when was it Angels on your little thing about the whole Corbyn, was it scruffy front bencher from a scruffy back bencher and you got triggered.
Yeah, you know the funny thing with that is actually during the actual stream, I wasn't triggered by anything that was said. I actually edited it to make it look like I've been triggered because it would be funnier.
Yeah, but let's be honest, us Brexiteers, we don't get triggered as much as the Remainers do, but the Remainers are good at getting us triggered though.
No, the only thing that triggers me is Tony Blair, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I should mention. I think
I'm used to it being like when the media cover Tony Blair.
Yeah, but I mean, what was it? The whole thing about Blair being EU president. Imagine him commanding an EU army. Imagine how scary that would be.
Oh, with his track record of military intervention, I don't like the odds.
Yeah. I mean, he'll probably invade Iraq, then invade the protests against Iraq again. You know. I wouldn't be surprised.
Just to make he said he'd do it again, didn't he?
Yeah.
That was the thing.
But the whole US military thing, their next targets are Iran and North Korea, so probably do there.
Yeah, once they got Syria out of the way and they've isolated old Putin from all of his allies.
And they've built their oil pipeline. That's why they want Assad gone. It's all about that oil pipeline.
All about that oil.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Oh, I saw a comment on was it Kitchen Nightmares where. Was it the plate has so much oil on it the US are going to invade it? Yeah. Oh God.
Gordon Ramsay
said
that.
No, he didn't say that, but one of the comments did.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. But I mean, if he said that, that would be absolute perfection, though.
I've seen one from Gordon Ramsay that said your chicken's so rubbery that I think Goodyear have called you for the recipe.
Yeah.
The man's a demon.
Yeah. Parliament is never actually. Well, let's go to AC Grayling now. I think it's good.
Right, pin tweet. Wrong.
Yeah.
Amazingly, Parliament has never actually voted for Brexit. Well, I mean, what was Article 50 then?
Yeah, why did Article 50 get like a supermajority through? How did that happen? Trump's business.
Did we not find out actually, guys, that a couple of days ago? We did some research on it, didn't we? And he was a big donor for the Labour Party, wasn't he, during Blair?
Oh yeah, so Blair right to come. Yeah, okay. Gibraltar, but that's just Spain being Spain, really. Oh God, let's see. Estea Sinister. Is it Hancock? Isn't that like Swiss?
Yeah,
Isn't that like your best friend, right? Hancock.
That'll get more bad reviews for his app if he's not.
Oh yeah, Secretary of State for Hancock. Fun.
Hancock is my new Tim Farron, basically.
Yeah. But didn't Tim Farron like nearly lose his seat though?
He
Very,
did.
very nearly, yeah.
Yeah, but my favourite moment during the election was when Sir Nick Clegg lost his seat. I love that.
Oh, his face, man. His face when he lost his seat.
Yeah.
I may go back and rewatch that, to be fair, because it was quite hysterical.
Yeah, because let's be honest, us students, we had our revenge, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Because
but the problem is who replaced him. Who replaced him was probably worse than him.
Yeah, that's Jared Amora. But I haven't heard much about him. What's up with him at the moment?
Well, he's been suspended from the party, so he no longer he's. The thing is, he hasn't made an appearance in Parliament anyway, so it's not a massive loss.
I think he started turning up now and running as an kind of being an independent now. But
he hasn't made his maiden speech, has he?
But I don't think so. But he knows that he's going to lose his seat next time anyway, because he's not going to be selected.
It'd be really funny if Clegg came back. That'd be hilarious.
I mean, if Cable came back, I could see Clegg coming back.
Yeah.
In fairness, I wouldn't write it off, considering the state at the moment of Sheffield.
Yeah. Oh, FBPE, because Jeremy Corbyn is not up to the job, he supported them triggering Article 50 immediately. He'd lost the general election, so he must have known he was helping them to deliver a Tory Brexit. See, this is the problem. They just slag off Corbyn, don't they? And it's Graining retweeted that as well.
Corbyn's in league with the Tories. He wants to back their nasty Tory hard Brexit.
Vote Lib Dem, guys. Oh, but wait a minute. They'll be in coalition the next thing, you know.
Yeah, the only way to stop Brexit is to vote Lib Dem so we can have a hung parliament and the Lib Dems can go into another coalition with the Tories.
Oh, yeah, I remember, wasn't it your creepypasta video? Wasn't it single market membership at all costs, power any price?
Oh Christ, you're going back a bit now. Was that that the Milkman? Milkman video?
Yeah, the Milkman. Yeah.
Man, I think you can remember my videos better than I can at this point.
I'm a big fan. I think I was one of the first people to watch your videos anyway. So.
Oh man, well I appreciate you being with me so long.
Yeah, because I mean, same here. I couldn't find any Corbynite Brexiteers when I became a Brexiteer in, I think it was around the election time actually, June, July 2017. So I started watching your stuff and I got into it. So yeah. Great.
Well, good. That is exactly what I set out to do in the first place, to make a channel that left-wing Brexiters could sort of congregate around a little bit.
And now you're on another channel that's for left-wing Brexiteers as well. So thanks
awesome.
to you. Thanks to you, we've created this channel. I think you were a big inspiration actually for me to create this. So.
Oh man, well I really appreciate that, and honestly I wish you guys the best of luck with this channel as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a look.
Have you got your fangirling out of your system now, Asim?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Oh, what do you guys think about James O'Brien and his stuff on Brexit as well? What do you guys think?
Do not even get me started on that man. I cannot. I listen to him for the sake of comedy.
What do you think of him, Swiss, just in general as well?
James O'Brien, he's right on some things, he's wrong on other things. Yeah. That's probably the best I can give it in a short statement.
What's this whole? What is this Cambridge Analytica thing? I don't really understand it. What's this whole thing?
It's a company that was processing data from social media that was using it to assist political movements.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they're watching our stream right now. To be fair, you know. Yeah, they probably will. You know. Oh, the EU has delivered 60 years of peace and prosperity with faster GDP. Well, the faster GDP per capita. Actually, our GDP grew quicker when we were outside the EU. In fact. So I don't see what the point there is. The peace and prosperity, it was the Council of Europe that did that. And the EU has actually stolen their flag and their anthem, which was it Beethoven's Symphony 9. So, yeah.
Yeah, and as well, I'll just make this point quickly. I think a lot of the so-called security and peace that's attributed to the EU, there's a serious bit of overlap with NATO in those regards, actually.
Yeah, but I think it was the CIA that lobbied the EU to create a United States of Europe to fend off Russia. So I think EU and NATO are actually linked in that regard.
Oh, yeah, I'd say they probably are.
Yeah, read this. They are wiping out the dissent. Oh, God. Alt-right propaganda mob.
If only there was less Remain stuff on the media.
Yeah. Yeah, so is it Stop Brexit, Great Northern March?
They'll get about 7 people on that.
Yeah.
You know what? If we could put a positive spin on it, at least young people are going outside and getting a nice bit of exercise, eh?
Yeah, but,
they're not going to achieve anything.
Yeah, getting off the PlayStation for once, at least. Protesting for their EU Masters. Good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, put down Destiny or Call of Duty and go out and say how much you love Brussels. There we are.
Yeah. It's like just worship Juncker very. EU is our future. 75% of 18 to 24. Well, the thing is, I think it was only 64% overall of young people actually voted, including like under 30s. So I don't see what our point is. But the thing is, if you guys wanted to stay, they should have voted more, to be honest.
Yeah, and the point there in that statistic, 75% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted Remain. That means 25% voted Leave,
Yeah.
which means when people claim to speak for all young people,
Yeah.
going, "Oh no, we've been sold down the river by these old people."
I mean, you voted Leave. I support Leave, as does the other people on this stream, and also Stephen Edgerton. I don't know if you guys have seen his videos. He's a young Tory Brexiteer, and yeah, he was actually campaigning to vote Leave when he was 16 years old. So yeah, exactly. There are more people than people think.
Yes, same when the SNP
here
so they're
we are,
speaking to Scotland on the issue.
Another FPPE troll. Declare the 2016 referendum vote null and void due to foreign interference. Oh God.
Obama.
Yeah. Oh God. This is ridiculous. But then again, it's only got 10,000 something. Oh, remember.
But who are they saying got involved? Are they blaming it on the Russians again?
Russia.
Yeah, Putin.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah. And also, I remember after the referendum when there was that huge petition with 3 million signs saying, "Oh, vote to Remain instead." Apparently, most of those were actual bots and fake accounts who voted on that poll, on the government thing.
What was that?
Basically, after the referendum, there was this thing where it's saying, "Vote to Remain instead. We regret our decision." I think what was it? It was like 3 million or something voted for that, and apparently most of the accounts were either fake or not in the UK. So it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, you know what? Even assuming that all of the accounts were real, hell, let's give them 4 million votes for Remain or 5 million votes for Remain. Unless that petition managed to get more votes for Remain than the actual referendum result offers.
17.4 million people, then, I don't...
Yeah.
Well, but let's be honest, it might be Tony Blair or Vince Cable creating multiple accounts or something,
It could have been, yeah. I'd love to imagine them just getting together on having a hangout and just going, "Right, guys, let's make some new accounts."
It would be George Osborne, Tony Blair, Vince Cable, and Nick Clegg. The Fantastic Four.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Free. Is it Ferret Army? Don't you know who I am? Government responded. Oh, let's see. The United Kingdom vote to leave the EU. The government did run this. This is a lie, a huge lie. An advisory referendum cannot. But they voted to trigger Article 50, so it's not advisory, is it?
An advisory referendum cannot instruct anyone. The clue is in the name. Advisory. We're advising the government to do something.
No, but even David Cameron said, "We will implement your decision. No ifs, no buts. It's a referendum, not a never-endum." Remember when he said that? Yeah, but I mean... Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, obviously, an advisory referendum does not have any fixed legal basis, but it has a very fixed moral basis. If you hold a referendum and say you're going to implement the result and then have an election where parties stand on implementing the result and then you trigger Article 50, I'm sorry, but it's happening,
Yeah.
That's the important thing, because the Scottish referendum was also advisory. You can't really have a binding referendum under our constitution because nothing can be binding above Parliament because Parliament's the highest law.
Oh my God! Here's a perfect example of deluded FBPE trolls. I'm concerned about the poorest in our society getting poorer. Given that Conservatives look after only the richest 1% of our society, I want to ensure working class don't suffer more by giving them even more power. Well, the Commission are going to get even more power. They're just as much of the 1% as the Tories are.
I want to ensure the working class don't suffer by giving them more power. I can't understand staying in the EU and getting more power being in the same sentence together.
We didn't want to join the FPP fascist cult. Okay. Hey, FPP, is the Conservatives just made this cool form to tell Jeremy Corbyn to stop Brexit? I don't know. It looks yellow, so it's probably Lib Dem, to be honest. emphasis on some other stuff.
I'm glad I'm with you guys looking at all this FBPE stuff, because I'd probably be getting really annoyed if I was just by myself.
Yeah, because imagine if you did it with Angels. Imagine what she would say about all this stuff. She'd be on the side.
Oh God, we'd be having massive disagreements about it.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Straight away, Asim's driving lines down all of Switch's support and breaking up his channel.
Yeah. Well, the Russians are telling me to do. Well, the Russians are telling me to do it, so I have no choice.
Hang on a minute. I thought the Russians were telling me what to say on my channel. Are they instructing you as well?
Because I'm a Leave supporter and I support Corbyn, so I must support Russia as well. So
the money goes to Asim, then we distribute it equally for a proletariat committee.
Yeah. We're fascist/communist according to Remainers, because we're fascist because we support the EU, and we're communists because we're doing all this stuff.
Yeah, our group chat that we created quite a time ago.
Yeah, hard left, right, racist, fascist, commie Russian bots. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we add Hermit to the chat because I'm thinking about starting a tech channel with him, actually, on PCs and stuff. Because my rig here, it's actually custom built. I built it in 2014, so. Yeah, I'm a techie, and you guys always tell me like I'm not good at tech or anything, so that's why I'm handling all the streaming. So
that's why we gave you all this to do.
Yeah, so I created the channel. I'm doing all the streaming, and it's fun actually. Referendums.
Yeah, that's pretty much how my life operates. Someone else does all the hard work, and then I just spout my opinions to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a good platform anyway.
Socialism.
Yeah. Referendums are advisory reliable, they're not constitutionally binding. Parliament is sovereign. Cameron's not legally obliged to invoke the Lisbon Treaty to begin an EU Brexit. What was this illegal, surely? Parliament isn't sovereign while we're in the EU anyway, so I don't see what their point is. I don't understand, but big line.
This is the problem, Asim. You always try and link FBP with logic, and that's a fatal mistake.
Yeah. Oh God, the European Parliament enjoy a Farage roasting. They know what lying piece of shit. Oh wait, no, Farage normally roasts them. But it's Guy Verhofstadt, isn't it? I don't understand this with Guy Verhofstadt. He just always says he wants a United States of Europe. We need to create one, and he's like hashtag we are European, hashtag I'm European, hashtag future of Europe. What? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Whilst we're on the subject of Nigel Farage, because Swiss, I know that you listened to some of his stuff because I've seen on your channel.
Swiss was on one of Nigel's shows actually.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I noticed that obviously you must follow him, seeing as you've had the opportunity to talk to him. But what do you think about Farage aligning himself with Jeremy Corbyn on Russia?
Well, I think that often when you have Farage and Corbyn saying the same thing on a certain issue, it's worth listening usually.
Yeah.
Because often, Farage and Corbyn, possibly because, most of us think that Corbyn's a Eurosceptic, he seems to be, but Farage and Corbyn are usually pretty far apart on most issues. So I think when they've got something in common, that's worth listening to. It's similar, actually, when you have Peter Hitchens and George Galloway echoing the same thing as well, from a journalism point of view.
Hitchens has been defending Corbyn as well.
Yeah.
That's right,
yeah. I haven't seen that.
Wow. I haven't
no,
I
it's a lie. Yeah, I think George, you retweeted something, didn't you?
Peter Hitchens had written an article for the Mail on Sunday, basically warning against the sort of the clamping down on any dissent to the version of events the government put forward about Salisbury. And saying that because Corbyn dared to question it and dared to suggest we go for official channels of it, he is unpatriotic, he is untrustworthy, he's an enemy of the state, and all the rest of it. And basically, what Hitchens had to say, and be under no illusions here, Hitchens is a very right-wing commentator.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, he said that when you have the leader of the opposition being attacked by the press for a position and not the government being scrutinised, that's serious trouble.
Yeah.
Because, what other country has the opposition being attacked more than government? Well, Russia's probably one of them for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. FBPE troll Vince Cable. Now we need to find... Okay. Played a key role in Brexit Oh, come on, Vince, honestly.
Did I answer your question about Farage, by the way?
Yes, you did.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
I asked what your opinion on him aligning himself with Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh right. In which case, I hold the opinion that if a position is correct to be held, it doesn't really matter whether you're left wing or right wing are getting behind it, because that is the right thing to do. So I think there's plenty of times where people on the left and the right can agree with things.
Oh yeah. Oh, and here's a Lib Dem account. It says 91% of Lib Dem members want a referendum on a final Brexit deal, and then 78% of Labour members want a final say, and yet Jeremy Corbyn is pursuing a damaging hard Brexit. Well, the thing is, if you had a referendum on the final deal, the EU will give us such a bad deal that we vote to stay in. So there's no point doing it.
Yeah, and that 78% figure of wanting a final say. Obviously, I haven't seen the polling for that myself, but I do know that you get very different answers depending on how you phrase the question. If you phrase it as a second referendum, most people are against it. Yeah. If you phrase it as approval of what the final negotiation deal is, more people are in support of it. But essentially, they are both the same thing.
Yeah, but if I was going to have a referendum personally, as I'm probably the hardest Brexiteer out of you lot, I'd have a referendum. Accept the deal or reject the deal and go with WTO. That's what my referendum would be personally. And if they did that, I'd be very happy if they did that personally.
Yeah, as long as the end result of any future referendum on the deal means we're still leaving, then I wouldn't mind so much. To be honest,
if I'll have a look in 2019 or whatever. But if the deal is really bad and there's extended transition, I'd be more than happy to go out on WTO personally.
I'm happy. I'm happy to have WTO as a last resort.
Yeah.
But I think it ought to be used as a last resort, mainly in terms of trying to convince Brussels that we would be willing to walk away, so we can try and get a better deal.
Yeah. I find it funny.
That's true, but the government say, "Oh, well, that's our negotiating tactic," but then they say it in public. I don't think they realise that the EU can watch the House of Commons and can figure that out for themselves.
Yeah.
It's not like there's some sort of wall.
Yeah, but I mean, even Theresa May doesn't believe what she's saying because she's still a Remainer at heart. She's still one of those globalist elites. Yeah. So.
Well, here's a thought experiment for you guys in that case, just going off of what you just said about the tactics. I imagine there's probably stances and positions that the government presently takes on Brexit right now in terms of the negotiations which they're actually not telling us, probably for that exact reason, because they don't want to clue the EU into what it is. Now, the nature of that is, obviously, there's no way for us to know what those things are. But I imagine, if I were in government and I were negotiating Brexit, there would certainly be a number of decisions I'd be making that I wouldn't be informing the public about, because otherwise that gives your hand away. So there may well be still stuff that they're doing which we're not aware of, but by its very nature we'll never be aware of it.
Yeah. 7 things you didn't know about Lib Dem members. Well, let's see.
Go on.
They're Tory.
Yeah. Yellow Tory, yellow Tory, yellow Tory. Ramona. There we go.
That was 7. I did count 7 there.
Yeah. Exactly.
In fairness, I don't know if you guys ever heard of this guy. He's called something Wilkins. I'll find out what he's called. He's on Twitter. He's actually became a really good friend of mine, actually, and he's a Lib Dem, and he's a very staunch leaver. And I think he has a figure, and he's something like 30% of Liberal Democrat members that are leavers.
Yeah, exactly. But then
That
again,
sounds about right, yeah.
again, isn't there the SDP for those sort of guys anyway?
There's actually I got someone on from the Social Democratic Party. That's right.
Stephen
on my channel.
Yeah, I watched the interview. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is sort of a centrist stroke centre left Eurosceptic movement out there for people. They're just not particularly electorally viable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as the Lib Dems are on the centre Remain side, aren't they? Exactly.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like the SDP could only dream of getting to like 7% in the polls at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw that actually, your interview that you did with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or did with him, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Expectations.
Yeah, but I think the Lib Dems 30% is an important one because, like, the Lib Dems' traditional base is the Southwest. Like, Paddy Ashdown was MP for Yeovil, stuff like that, and the Southwest voted to leave. So that's why they'll struggle, I think, to ever make a comeback unless the EU falls down our issues again.
Yeah.
Because the Southwest is where their heartlands are, places like Bath, places like Exeter, places like Yeovil. And at the moment, they're nowhere near in those places because of their hardline Remain position.
Exactly. Oh, here's another one. Thanks for your honesty and courage in going public that you now feel leaving the EU is a mistake. Put FBP in your profile or name and join the Brexit resistance. We are the opposition now. It's not going to be easy, but we can still stop Brexit. Remainer now.
You can't though. I don't understand why these people think they're going to stop Brexit.
Let's be honest. I mean, Guy Verhofstadt probably brainwashed them or something. I don't know.
I maybe understand this. Like, you know how over in America they had like that resist Trump hashtag, and everyone thought they were going to be able to and they all thought they were going to be able to impeach him within 6 months. I guess that's our equivalent of that then.
Yeah. But what do you think of Femi? Have you seen some of the stuff Femi's been doing? I don't know if you've heard of him.
Femi,
anti-Brexit guy. I'll show you because he's been doing some stuff. And I found out he had an interview with Julia Hartley-Brewer, and he said he did some work in the European Parliament. So I'm not surprised that he is a Remainer. He's probably gone through all the brainwashing, hasn't he?
I'll be honest with you. Aside from mainstream media, I don't really see that much. I don't really look out for that much anti-Brexit content online for obvious reasons. So I'm not too familiar with him, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh God.
What does he come out with then? What sort of stuff does he say?
Well, he's just he's got 22.6 tweets, which basically say pro-Remain stuff. So fishing quotas, environmental experts, national ministers. But the thing is, why should the EU be allowed to fish in our waters? We can't really fish in theirs, so why should they be allowed to fish in ours? It doesn't make sense, personally. Yeah, it's just absurd. Everything, our future, our choice. You tell people we can't restrict immigration, we're forced into Schengen. But the thing is, we will be if we stay. So I don't see what his point is. If you make people feel powerless, of course they'll vote to take back control. But we are powerless within the EU, so I don't see what his point is. So
they say we have power to control immigration. We don't have power to reduce it a little bit more.
Yeah.
We don't have.
Yeah, but if we join Schengen, which we probably will if we stayed, all that so-called control be thrown out the window.
I mean, the problem is that the British state has certain tools at its disposal to disagree with things within the EU and to try and veto them and all the rest of it. But my problem is that the governments that we usually elect are very unlikely to do that. Most governments that we elect are pro-European. So the British people generally don't have that say because the politicians in charge are constantly agreeing with the EU.
Here's a poem that Femi made 14 hours ago. We vote to take back control despite all the facts we were told. Our nationalist target means no single market. Now we're Oliver Twist with the bowl.
It's a limerick. That's pretty.
Yeah.
That's not bad, actually.
I mean, that's not bad. Well, let's take this out line by line because we're all pro-Brexiteers. We can do this. We voted to take back control. Well, yes, despite all the facts we were told. Well, the Remain side were full of lies, though. Project Fear, it was nonsense, wasn't it?
Can we like change it from despite all the facts we were told to because of all the facts we were told?
Yeah. Our nationalist target. Well, wait a minute. All these Remainers are Euro-federalists, which is even worse. So I don't see his point there. Means no single market. Well, yes, of course. Even David Cameron said we'd vote to leave single market. Now we're Oliver Twist of the bowl. I don't see. But we'd be poor if we stayed because of the euro. So I don't see what his point is. It's it's ridiculous. Okay, but I don't. The thing is, loads of these like FBP people call themselves left wing, and yet they slag off Corbyn every time. You know, especially on Russia. I don't get it. It's madness, isn't it?
I think because probably there's a lot of overlap between these people who are desperate to stay in the EU and these people on the so-called left who want nothing to do with any form of socialism.
Oh yeah, and also here's this thing about. I think Femi said that old people die off. You know, when the transition period happens. It says the Brexit majority of residents in 2021 who've aligned to follow rules of the EU. But he's basically, I think in one of his interviews, he basically indirectly said that he wants like all the old people who voted Leave to die off, which makes no sense. Like, you know, I'm 18 and I don't want to die. I mean, George and Calvin and Swiss don't want to die. We're all young, you know. We don't want to die at all. So
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a good another 40 years in me at the rate that I'm smoking
Yeah.
at the moment. I should be all right. Yeah.
Same here. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, globalist Theresa May. But I mean, Remainers are globalists, so I don't see his point. But yeah, what do you think about the whole EU thing with the fishing quotas? But the transitional deal. Well, I think we've capitulated on pretty much everything. So we're gonna have free movement until 2021. We're gonna have all the common fisheries knots until 2021. So basically, gonna be a full member without no say until 2021, which is ridiculous.
I'm unhappy with all of the capitulation, but sadly, I see it as the reality in front of us.
Exactly.
I think that considering that the EU seems to have a much stronger bargaining hand than we do at the moment, we're probably going to have to accept it.
Yeah, but the only thing they've capitulated on, the EU side, is trade deals, which, let's be honest, it's with the trade thing, they can't really lose our trade, can't they? So they said we can negotiate and sign trade deals during transition, which is fair enough, but that's the only thing it looks like they've, thing on.
Yeah, I think with the transition that it's something that if we've got to compromise on something, the transition's the one where you think, well, we don't want Brexit to be blamed for everything in the future. Mm-hmm. If a transition will help smooth it out and make sure that Brexit in the end is a success, then I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that given how much preparation needs to be made for Brexit and the lack of preparation before the referendum, probably an additional amount of time is helpful. But the most important thing to me is that there is a fixed date of when this transition will end. Yeah. And it's enshrined in law that the transition will end. I don't like these arguments of people like the Chukwuemunnas and the Labour Party going, let's just extend this transition for a little bit longer, just see how it goes. No, you're keeping us in the EU.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, isn't that? I think it was Labour Remainers who are trying to say we should indefinitely have transition so we don't leave, wasn't it?
Well, pretty much. I mean, obviously, their goal in general is to stop Brexit in the first place. But if they can do it in a sneaky way, which is to have a never-ending transition period, then I'm sure they would.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, this one of the guys I follow, 50% Brexit, says this account seems to be a troll. It adds FBP to its post-Canadian anti-EU pro-Brexit stuff. Suggests you block. Well, the thing is, I do that all the time, and they block me as well, so it's quite fun. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't understand. So what do you think about like Tony Blair and John Major like having a speech about this whole Brexit thing? I mean, with John Major, I think we were talking about this on a previous stream, and it was like he forced through Maastricht Treaty, so he shouldn't really be trusted on the EU, should he?
I mean, I think it's up to us whether we want to trust on this sort of thing or not. I hold Blair in a very different position than I hold Major in. Yeah. Even though Major's Tory, so it's quite funny in that sense.
Oh, but Major, wasn't he like? Didn't he say that he'd keep us in the ERM and he had to pull us out, and inflation was like 15% or something ridiculous. Yeah. But
that panned out well for us.
Yeah, but wasn't it ERM? We needed to be in that to join the euro, wasn't it? So, yeah, it's... I love the fact that the Brexit guy who tweets about Brexit has FBPE and all his things. Farage's next victim is the NHS, automotive industry. Yeah, I mean... Oh, there we go again. Brilliant little read. Second ref, FBPE. Chukwuemuna and Anna Soubry having like little coalition.
It's weird. It's like Chukwuemuna and Anna Soubry are the acceptable face of the exact same thing that Tony Blair and George Osborne were doing in their article together.
Yeah, but I mean, I
find Soubry more vile than Major.
Yeah, really?
Like in the question time that actually happened in Salisbury, John McDonnell and Anna Soubry were there, and
she called him a Marxist, didn't he?
She called him Marxist, a nasty piece of work. She accused him of inciting anti-Semitism.
Yeah. But the thing is, with the right, it's like they always accuse the left of having the race card. The right always have the anti-Semitism card, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's anything that sticks, isn't it? And the unfortunate thing with the Labour Party is, I mean, how big is our membership? It's about 550,000. It's approximately
570,000.
Yeah.
570,000. Within 570,000 people, I find it impossible to believe that there isn't going to be some anti-Semites in there. Just the sheer number of
but
people.
I mean, they're blowing it out of proportion, though. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn clearly is no anti-Semite.
Yeah.
There is no anti-Semitic Labour Party policies that have came about as a result of being leader. So anything that they're trying to pin on Labour is absolutely circumstantial and individualistic at best.
I just saw them comparing Rees-Mogg to Hitler on the stream. Like, I don't like Rees-Mogg, but that's not a fair comparison in the slightest.
No, I'm really tired of sort of people jumping to compare anyone they don't like on the right to Hitler or a fascist, because it's a really easy game to play,
Yeah, I mean, and also I think a reason why people say that Corbyn is anti-Semitic because he's pro-Palestine. I think that's a big reason as well. They just pull that card out as well.
Well, it's like Swiss said, it sticks. It's something that sticks, and it's a great card to play, isn't it, to try and get the vote away from Labour.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, they wouldn't be plugging away at this line still if it wasn't clearly having some effect to their benefit.
Yeah.
No, it definitely has lateral, because I hear it on the doorstep a lot.
Yeah. Oh, and also, was it 350 million to the NHS? But we haven't left yet. I just love the fact that they're saying 350 million.
Oh, right, guys, can I get your opinion on this bus, right? Because this is a thing that's been, full well, it's been niggling me ever since the referendum. As far as I was concerned, during the time of the referendum, that bus was simply a statement of saying, here's the money that we send to Europe, here's a suggestion of the sort of thing we could spend it on instead.
Yeah, it didn't say...
That was the way I interpreted it.
It didn't say, we will spend it on the NHS. It is a suggestion, let's try and spend it on the NHS, which is different.
Yeah. The thing they got
we had a brief
it doesn't include the rebate.
Yeah.
And as well, the thing is, we haven't left the EU yet, and regardless, £350 million, we need more than that for the NHS anyway, so...
Yeah,
I mean, I remember on the news the day after the referendum result, they were getting Brexiters onto like morning breakfast shows and stuff going, so when's this 350 million coming, guys? When's it going to happen? You promised it would happen. And I was like, wow, the propaganda started really quickly.
Also the BBC, I've noticed on there, when it comes to like question time and stuff, the Remainers outnumbered 4-1. Not so the Brexiteers are, because it's like you got Farage and then you got all the Remainers on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and here's another one you'll get triggered by. Here lies Brexit 2016 to 2018, died of its own contradictions.
I think they, instead of putting a 2, I think they were meant to put 3 for 3018.
Yeah.
And then they just, I guess it's an error.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
Are you saying we're going to have a beautiful 1,000 years of Brexit?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, humanity might not exist in 1,000 years. Let's be honest.
Oh, and we'll blame Brexit for it, if not them, the Russians.
Yeah.
Russia.
Oh, no, there's this FBPE troll, like, what was it, blaming Russia for, like, some tree falling over, and I said, what are you going to do next? Are you going to blame Brexit and Corbyn for it falling over? You know?
Oh, I love that. There was something I read somewhere on a forum the other week, which was if a ballot box is stuffed in the middle of a forest and no one is around to see it, was it still the Russians or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
It's a ridiculous rhetoric, but it's a rhetoric that seems to work, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... Oh, they're going to do... They're attributing, like, Brexiteers to Middle Eastern terrorists now. It says, once the political jihad is over, MPs on both sides will have a sense to keep the UK in the customs union and single market. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Political jihad.
Yeah.
So they're trying to paint Brexiteers as Islamic extremists now.
Wow, it's
I think I know why a lot of these accounts are anonymous. It's because they don't want to get found out because they're from, as George Galloway would say, they're from Ward 5 at Broadmoor.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, but I thought that was like high security. I mean, you have like air raid sirens to tell them when they're escaping, you know, that's how high security it is.
I think this is
where they put the most dangerous people, Ward 5, Broadmoor.
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe this would be really funny if like the government disabled the sirens one day and let them all out, and then they're all the Brexit saboteurs, aren't they? Like, you know, stop Brexit, that sort of thing. That'd be really funny. Yeah. AC Grading tweets. The referendum result. Oh God, so many NHS crisis, no HS2 Daily Mail, Tories out, stop Brexit. It's ridiculous.
I want one of those. Scroll up a little bit. That little is that like a little Farage doll or something?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's Farage doll, yeah. Yeah.
I kind of want one for my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want one. I want a little Farage one on the right on my mantelpiece, and I'll have a little Corbyn one on the left, and I'll just have them sitting there.
Yeah. No. I'll have one glued to my shoulder at all times to trigger Remainers. Yeah, I mean, it would be great. I don't know, right or left shoulder, but probably right, because people call him far right. You know. Oh God. Retweet. Oh God. It's ridiculous. Farage, man. But I like the one where the SNP have a clear agenda.
Oh, no more House of Lords videos.
Oh God, House of Lords.
Like, I think the Remain campaign have gone, so we've realised we were out of touch, anti-them.
Yeah. Enemies of the people.
And all about the elite. So we're going to get Lord Andrew Adonis to front our movement.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I talked about this before. They're talking about, like, all these levels, to be honest. I'd much rather run down the stairs of a burning house and out the front door, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I've seen that graphic before. That's the little staircase showing the different deals that are apparently on offer.
Yeah, so
isn't it?
So you've got EU, EEA, and then like they're all going down, and you got like Turkey, which is what Labour wants as his customs union. That's exactly it. So excellent thread, Cambridge Analytica, Brexit backslide, EU leaders about Brexit backsliding. And I think, oh God. Leave the EU, no more Polish. Oh, no, I don't think that. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, that's what they're trying to get this whole thing, aren't they? About all Brexiteers are racist, isn't it?
Well, that's the whole thing. 52% racists and fools.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, that was your first video. Have we decided to leave EU yet? But we can't until the so-called transition period. Brexit isn't working. Britain's better off remaining, but I don't think I've mentioned this in the stream, Swiss, but the EU themselves have said if we remained, we'd lose access to our opt-out, so we have to join the Euro and join Schengen and some other stuff. So what's the point of reversing Brexit if we're going to be poor if we stay, you know?
Exactly, and with that graphic right in front of you as well, and I hate to be quoting something that would benefit the Conservatives here, but actually we've got record levels of low unemployment right now.
Yeah,
so
even though most
that.
of them are working class in poverty and in 0 hours contracts, isn't it?
Oh yes, of course, that's always worth mentioning. But it clearly Brexit has not had an effect on employment at present.
Understand the good part is not the people to focus on. We may stand and send the pro-EU message in May. See, this is the problem in May. It's not about EU, is it? It's about local elections. That's what I don't understand. But why are they saying, like, local elections are all to Brexit? It's all about, I think Calvin mentioned, it's all about local stuff, so like bin collection and, you know, local services. That's it. It's nothing to do with Brexit.
Maybe.
I think,
go on.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to make a joke. You might have had a serious point.
Oh no, go ahead. Tell us your joke.
It's not going to be funny now. I've built it up. I was just going to say maybe if they elect enough Lib Dems in the local council elections, they might be able to put some FBPE stickers on the bin men collecting stuff or something.
Oh no. They have FBPE on all the public services and all the bins. So you know everyone gets triggered.
My dad let them do that in a million years.
Yeah. Or instead of that, they should have like Tony Blair's face on it or something.
I think the idea of this local election stuff is to shake up Labour and the Conservatives, but realistically, it isn't going to happen.
Yeah, I mean it's just ridiculous. I mean, but the whole thing is, I don't understand. You know, FBP about the whole thing. I mean, they have nearly 4 years to decide if they want to stay in the UK or not go through Brexit. I think they should move to their beloved United States of Europe if they hate Brexit so much. What do you guys think?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. If you value Europe more than you value the UK, then it's probably worth moving to Europe. To be quite honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's taking back control in their dreams. Companies trying to UK democracy. Oh God. The whole Turkey thing. But the thing is, Turkey might join, but they've got other countries joining, which are really bad as well. So I don't understand what their point is, because they want other countries like Serbia and others to join by 2030. So, and they're working hard to do it. May's hamstrung by oh no, Cernic Clegg.
Oh, our boy Clegg.
Oh, and you got Lord Adonis there. Oh God, I hate that. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you turn up to your job in Britain's fishing rights, oh God, it's nice photos. Do not worry, you need the EU to correct rights of the EU citizens. But the thing is, EU citizens is quite easy to do. You just literally say, if they have no criminal record, they stay. It's easy, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, to be honest, I think all EU citizens who stay here should go through a criminal record check, and if they have some serious convictions, then consider deportation. But that's it, really. I mean, they should be allowed to stay.
Stop being so sensible, Asim. You know that's not allowed.
But the thing is, the FBP trolls will tell me that I'm aligning with Farage because that's what he said about citizens' rights. So they're going to call me a racist. So yeah. It's ridiculous. Everyone except 16 and 17-year-olds, EU citizens resident in the UK, UK citizens, crown dependencies, overseas territories. It was not a democratic vote, but the thing is, like, what was it, 72% turnout for the referendum, so you can't overturn it. It's ridiculous. It was democratic. But the thing is, with 16 and 17, like, most of them didn't understand the true nature of the EU, so I don't understand it, you know.
Well, 16, 17-year-olds should have been allowed to vote. Just they should have been in general elections forever.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we return the results of every general election because certain people didn't get a vote.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to focus on the Tories. Understand FPP colleagues. Alternative to hard Brexit. I think this is the first reasonable FBP post I've ever seen in my life. Actually, I support him on everything. That's really interesting. Actually, that's interesting. It's the first reasonable FBP post ever.
They do exist out there.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, but it's just what does FPP stands for? Serious questions. Follow Brat Pro EU. I think it's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean it's. They all say that Brexit's right wing when I think it was like 4 million Labour voters voted Leave, didn't they? It wasn't it? I think it was 37% of people in the general election voted Leave, on Labour anyway.
I couldn't say, to be honest. I don't know the figure.
Yeah, but I know my town at least voted Leave. But what about you, Swiss? How did your place where your house is? Where did they vote Leave?
Well, I only moved to Stoke-on-Trent in the last 12 months, actually. But it was touted as the Brexit capital of Britain, which is why Paul Nuttall tried to run there for MP. So they're
so is that why you
pretty
got the
damn. Yeah, that's right. So they're pretty damn pro-Brexit over here.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, no wonder you moved there. You know what I mean?
Well, I did single it out just to be among my kind specifically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to say maybe we should levy up all of us Brexiteers and just move to Stoke in that case.
Yeah. Oh, and then we should get
independence from the UK.
Yeah, and then we should tell all the Remainers to move to London, and then we should leave all the northern towns and cities, and then blame it on Brexit.
What we need to do, right, guys, is we need to build a wall. It needs to be a big wall. It needs to be a firm wall.
Yeah.
It needs to be around the M25. We need to say to London, right, you can stay in the EU, but you're basically going to be the Vatican City.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I've heard Remainers are saying let's have London stay in the single market, but voice of Remainer things in Scotland.
I mean, realistically though, that's not workable. I mean, we're having enough trouble with the Northern Ireland border, let alone having London with special privileges.
Here's another one. I'm British European.
What's that, like the Camden Westminster border?
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm British European. Hands off my e-citizenship. Stop Brexit. Then move to Germany or somewhere so you can keep it. You know.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure. Am I right in saying that British citizens are able to apply for Irish citizenship, and obviously they're a part of the EU?
So what was that?
That British citizens are eligible to apply for Irish citizenship if they want to.
Yeah,
So-
within before we end the transitional period. Yeah.
Yeah, so like these people who aren't a fan of Brexit, they're perfectly entitled and able to continue to have EU citizenship if they get
Yeah.
dual.
Are
Irish
you
nationality.
guys gonna vote? Are you guys gonna apply for Irish citizenship?
Nope.
Absolutely not.
Me neither.
For Irish citizenship, they have to have a relation still.
Yeah. Oh, and this guy's like basically praising George Osborne. George is coming to the forefront again. George Osborne, millions of Britons, Brexit, political oppression or whatever. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Oh god. Protesters during Brexit shambled Brexit. I love that. Yeah. No, there's I saw this account on Twitter. I think it's called Brexit Shambles or something. It's ridiculous. Brexit ultra propagandists, nothing more. The idea they care about the working classes is one of the most ludicrous lies ever. But you don't either, mate. You care about the elites, so I don't know what his point is. Oh god. I don't understand. Why did the FBPE say they're for the working class? They're not. I mean, also, I remember it was Anna Soubry after the referendum. She wants to reverse Brexit, and she said, I speak for young people, us 48% unheard, which is ridiculous. She's a Tory... yeah, sorry.
Yeah, at best, she can say that she speaks for 75% of young people.
Well, under 25s.
Yeah, under 20.
At best,
yeah.
she can say she speaks for about 40% of Broxton.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's despite Brexit. I mean, what else?
The thing is, if the young people really, really wanted to reverse Brexit, there were the options there for us to vote for pro-EU parties, and we didn't vote for them. We voted for either Labour or Conservative.
Yeah,
and I think
because
really that just proves it, doesn't it?
they had Lib Dem and Green. Because if we were to vote Lib Dem, I think Swiss would have predicted a Daddy Vince's 300-seat swing in the first place. So yeah.
Well, that's it, yeah. If there were really that many people out there who valued EU membership above all other things, then we would have seen a hashtag Lib Dem fight back by now.
Yeah, I mean, I use it because I took it from you, Swiss, because I thought it was catchy. But I just use it when talking about the Lib Dems. It's...
Oh, yeah. I mean, the hashtag Lib Dem fight back, I didn't make that up myself. That was an actual thing of theirs to start with.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Nick Clegg tweeted it, didn't he?
Oh.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
it. Was
speaking of Nick Clegg,
Every single...
Speaking of Nick Clegg, we can have a look at his Twitter. Let's have a look at Nick Clegg's Twitter. Why not?
On.
I'm following him as well, so...
I just thought to say quickly, I might have to probably call it a day in about 10 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, we can... Last 10 minutes...
Just getting on a little bit.
That's fine. Yeah, after about 10 minutes or so, I'll go back to my essay. That's fine. Local level. I don't know.
In fairness to the Lib Dems, though, they are winning quite a lot of local seats.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's because of FBP or because people are just sick of the Conservatives and Labour.
I think it's just a protest vote at a local by-election. Lib Dems have always done well at by-elections whenever, and they've always done well at local elections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Nick Clegg. Economic arguments for staying in the EU become clearer by day, but we need to win the argument for heads and hearts. So you can be a proud British patriot and passionate pro-European at the same time. What I don't understand is pro-European, it just makes me sick because they're basically calling EU Europe, which is obviously what they want to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got absolutely no beef with people who are pro-European, but it's pro-European Union specifically, and it's like
Tony Benn was pro-European, but he was definitely not pro-EU.
Yeah, it's like I love Europe but hate the EU, so there's a difference. How soft Brexit died and what happens now? Oh wow, the economic argument for staying in the EU. I don't think so, because I think it was 90% of the economic growth is going to happen outside the EU in the next 20, 30 years, and the Commission said that themselves, so I don't understand, to be honest. Oh yeah, this is the glasses thing. I saw, I think it was Tony Blair was in one of these, actually.
Oh no!
Mandelson,
Mandelson!
yeah.
Mandelson! Oh, I've been triggered again. It's happened. It's happened.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
always the fucking new
Mandelson
Labour
in it.
politicians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm Jack Straw. Lovely.
Oh, Campbell.
Oh man, it's all. Farron.
Yeah, wow.
Oh,
Yeah, it's all the... Yeah, I don't know, because Blair was in one of these once. I'm not sure if he'd pop him in this one.
you've done it. You've triggered me right before bedtime.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to sleep now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I saw a funny comment where it's like, someone would need to put hashtag their glasses on to read the dodgy dossier for Iraq. Right, yeah.
Ebbles.
Yeah, Donald Tusk is right. Bang on about the freedom. One of the greatest freedom is the freedom to change your mind. But thing is, I would agree with that, but most people haven't changed their mind. We should just get on with it. Well, I agree with
Yeah, freedom to change your mind isn't freedom to change your mind every week.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Nigel about the second referendum thing, but he misses the point about Nigel. Nigel is about destroying the FBPE trolls. He's trying to empower them, isn't he? He doesn't understand the point. So, yeah, it's just weird. Knighthood does not mean I would serve in the House of Lords. Unelected legislature remains. Well, excuse me, Nick, what about the EU, you know?
Well, actually, funny you should say that, because he was trying to lobby Cameron to get him elected to the House of Lords
Really?
should he lose his seat in 2015.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. And also, he worked for the... I think it was the EU Parliament. He was an MEP, so unelected institutions.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Yeah. Even the EU will not look at everything. How to stop Brexit. Oh, he made a book about stopping Brexit, wasn't it? Oh, narrated by Nick Clegg. Wow. Should we watch this? Yeah.
Oh God, shall we not? I'd rather not waste my time listening to him.
Oh wow. How to stop Brexit. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Oh no, you've got ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I mean,
The thing is, I don't actually think that Nick Clegg is as pro EU as he says he is. I think he just thought at the time, oh, it's a way to win 17 million votes for the Lib Dems,
yeah,
and it did. Oh, sorry, 16 million. Sorry, and it didn't happen.
yeah.
And now he's stuck. Now he has to.
Yeah. Right to Article 50. I don't. Yeah. Brexit's fell is lifting. Now MPs must constantly be reminded that they can stop Brexit. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, if the MPs do stop it, then there's going to be a civil war, to be honest. Because, you know, nobody's... Like, people are going to literally go to war with politicians, aren't they, if they actually stop this?
If they stop Brexit.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't think stopping Brexit is actually going to get off the ground now. I had my doubts a few months back. I was very pessimistic, but I'm beginning to feel a bit optimistic.
Yeah, here's his
about
book,
it.
How to Make Britain Great Again. Wow. That's his
By
book.
Nick Clegg.
Yeah. Penguin Books as well. Full publisher and everything. Wow.
I mean, a part of me wants to read it just for curiosity, but I'd rather not send any money to him.
Yeah. You know what I should do? I should buy a copy, maybe a used copy, and then film myself burning it and send it to him.
That will show those pro-EU bastards.
Yeah. No, you know what I should have? I should have the book on one side and an EU flag on the other side, but I should make sure that the EU flag is
flag
not...
burning, even more tolerant.
Yeah, but the EU flag is probably flame resistant though, isn't it? I remember a guy trying to burn a flag, but he couldn't because it was EU regulations.
That's what they've done. The EU have made their flag invincible by creating regulations which mean it can never be burned.
Yeah, I mean, it's
To
ridiculous.
be honest, I will never trust the bastards, seeing as they got rid of my menthol cigarettes.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I smoke menthol as well. Menthol filters and roll-ups.
Yeah,
Exactly, so
I remember.
never trust
I remember you've done that in a few streams actually.
Oh, what smoking?
Yeah, you've done that in a couple of streams, I think.
Yeah, I can't help it. Especially
It's
in the
alright.
early days, when I started out streaming. I used to smoke to relax me because it's
Yeah.
quite a tense thing having a big.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you look like a hard man, so it's a good thing.
probably back when I had the skinhead as well, for that matter.
Oh yeah, I remember your videos for the skinhead, of course. Yeah. Oh, you should probably go full skinhead and be like, I worship Daddy Vince, you know, because he's right there.
Looking back at it all with retrospect, right, going skinhead, nabbing photographic evidence of me with Paul Nuttall and all the rest of it probably wasn't a great look for trying to entice fellow left-wingers at the time.
Yeah.
No, probably not.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And also, Joe Swinson, of course. What do you think about Joe Swinson and the whole Thatcher statue thing?
Fill me in on this.
About
So
basically.
Joe Swinson wrote an article saying that there should be a Margaret Thatcher statue built in Parliament. That is bear in mind, the deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats.
I mean, I'm conflicted about this. Like, as far as building a statue to Thatcher goes, personally, I wouldn't like there to be one. But also, personally, I don't really care that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I do find it odd that a Liberal Democrat would ask for a Thatcher statue.
Yeah, but they are Tories after all, aren't they? Because a lot of their stuff, like single market, free movement, neoliberalism, they champion that stuff.
Yeah, well,
Can
exactly.
I get something in? Because Swiss said he was going to go soon.
Oh.
And there's
Yeah, of course.
tweet.
Yeah.
There's a tweet from the Labour History account.
Yeah.
On this day, 1946, Nye Bevan publishes his NHS bill. To the dismay of healthcare professionals, he proposes a nationalised service that's free for all.
Yeah.
He says, a free health service is pure socialism, he announced,
Yeah.
and as such is opposed to the hedonism of a capitalist society.
Yeah. Wow. But yeah.
Something profound to finish with.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's.
To make up for all of our rubbish
Yeah.
that we've been spouting for 3 hours and
But
37 minutes.
it's all fun. I mean, it's all fun, to be honest. But
Something
yeah.
nice and wholesome to end it on, eh?
Yeah, I mean, with said that, I mean, it's great to have you on. So yeah, I think I'll wrap it up now. To be fair.
Cheers, Swiss.
Yep.
We might have you.
Thank you,
We
Swiss.
should have you back at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be great. I've really enjoyed this, to be honest, being amongst my own kind, you know,
Yeah.
fellow left-wing Brexiteers.
Yeah,
It's quite nice.
Oh, yeah.
This is Leave being inward-looking again. We're not tolerant of other views.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Oh yeah. And the Remainers are like, you know, you should stick with your own kind anyway. So fair enough. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen and wrap it up. So that was great. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, yeah, hopefully we gained a few more subscribers than you did as well. So that'd be great.
Yeah, I hope so. And as I say, if at some point in the future you want to have me back on, I'll promote it once more, and hopefully I'll bring a few more of my viewers
Yeah.
over as well.
Yeah, I'm up to 20 now, so that's good. Yeah, so that'd be great. So thank you so much. So I'll just end the call now. Thank you. So yeah, that was great. So hopefully we'll see who's on next stream. That'll be announced soon.